wasn't a delay. Super, thank you. Welcome everybody to episode 14 of Heresy Hammer. It's a little bit of a different episode today because instead of Lee, who's bailed on us for this episode, we have got the mighty Giles from the Merchant Princelings podcast. You may or may not have heard of it, but it is an excellent UK-based podcast, and Giles is one of our very close Heresy boyfriends, and I've known Giles since I think I first met Giles when we went to Call of Duty, but I think that's a video game, isn't it? That's not right. Well, where do I mean? It was in the like the Outer Hebrides or something, wasn't it?
Miles away. Durham, Company of Legend.
That's it, Company of Legends.
Blood Angels and a lovely knitted cardigan.
Yes, exactly. Well. Exactly right. And that was the first time that I had met Giles, and ever since then we have been heresy boyfriends. Now, Giles is a keen enthusiast of the Sons of Horus, so we thought he would be the perfect person to come and join us for this show.
We've really dropped the ball here by not doing this as the 16th episode, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and doing Death Guard as
again
this one. Yeah, we'll keep on making those fatal errors. And John is just about to start a Sons of Horus army. In fact, he's actually already started as well.
It is a whip. It's a work in progress.
Yes.
Work has been done. Progress has very much been made. Yeah.
Have you posted any pictures of your whips so far?
Only in the private areas of our heresy lives. There's nothing public yet, but there will be some stuff coming over the Christmas break. So.
Okay, excellent.
It's my little Christmas project to myself. So
make sure you hashtag Heresy Hammer, so you might be featured in the next show. And myself, who has a massive Sons of Horus army, but has yet to play it. I think I played one game with Sons of Horus at the event where me and Harry kind of played together, and we kind of talked about that on a previous show. So all of us are dabbling or are playing Sons of Horus. So hopefully this will be a rather excellent show and tasty show where we go through the Sons of Horus in detail. But before we get onto that, let's have a look at the next slide. So we of course got me, Meadows Miniatures, we've got John at D6 Miniatures, and we've got Giles. So if you don't follow Giles has excellent hobby content, and some of his Mechanicum is on there, some of his militia, although I think the militia's being sold, or is it already sold?
No, they're still hanging around. They've survived for a few more months until we get that delicious PDF.
You want to see where it lands. Okay.
See just how bad it is before you make it.
That's right. Just enough so that their value completely falls off a cliff when they're almost unusable, and then I'll sell them.
Well,
you never know, mate. Yeah. They could make Medusa carriages great again, but
exactly, yeah.
I doubt that very much.
If you are interested in buying Giles's army, then send him a DM, and you might be able to do a deal, because he was looking to sell them to make way for more projects in the future. Let's go to what we're having a look at today. Don't forget our sponsors. So as we've discussed on previous shows, Cryptic Cabin are our sponsors for Heresy Hammer. Please make sure that you give them a follow on all your social media. They, of course, do their 20 to 25% discount on all the items, all the Heresy items that you might want to buy, but also on all sorts of things from scale 75 paints all the way to ammo enamels as well. So make sure that you give them a follow and make sure that you purchase your Heresy goodies from them. And don't forget our affiliate link in the comments below. And of course, myself is another sponsor of the show as well. And then we've already talked about this, but we will be discussing Sons of Horus and giving you a really in-depth dive into the Legion. Really interesting, I think, kind of from the perspective of those people who are looking to start Sons of Horus, but also people who already own an army, which is they're kind of the poster boys, along with the Imperial Fist, kind of the poster boys of this version.
It's a bit of a weird one because it kind of feels like they've been done dirty a little bit, because you're probably considered the Fists to be kind of in the sort of the top three legions on paper, whereas I think Sons of Horus are very much considered to be probably in the relegation zone as far as the Premier League of Legions is concerned. So it'd be nice that we're kind of all quite invested somewhat in Sons of Horus and to see what we can bring to the table here.
Yeah, that's exactly it, John. So what I'm hoping is that we've got 3 Sons of Horus heads here, and I'm hoping that we might be able to look at combinations, things that synergize really well, units that maybe aren't outside of the Sons of Horus, and look at some rights of war that might work for them as well to bring them up to Imperial Fist level of whackness. But but as I say, we'll go through that in a bit. But first of all, we've got our rules correction, and I have no idea what Lee wants us to correct in terms of rules, so we're just going to swiftly pass that one by. This is always like Lee's favourite.
I don't think there are any rules.
No, definitely
absolutely bang on. And if we might end up doing a Patreon only rules correction for the stuff we got wrong. Not that we actually get anything wrong on the Patreon. We actually research the stuff we do for people that are paid. Exactly. So.
We like to fire out misinformation on the proper show and give the patrons the actual correct information.
Yeah, we leave the breadcrumbs here.
Exactly right. Anyway, but Lee is here clearly in spirit with his rule correction, but we won't be doing that. So it feels like a while since we've done Heresy Hammer, taking it from Instagram, because we obviously did a lot of armies when we did our last main show. But we've got 8 people that you should go and follow if you don't already. And I went through all these people and followed them today as well. So you can see Coccapelli 3803. I didn't follow him before, and now I do as a result of this. So first of all, we got Balak painting. So some lovely Dark Angels Interrupters here. I quite like these because I thought they were proper gritty. I quite like the sort of like Martian basing style, but I thought that the red of the Martian basing style wasn't quite as offensive as kind of you often see, and I thought it was nice and subtle actually. So I thought it worked really well for the Dark Angels. John, do you want to talk about the Kratos?
I do. I like a Kratos, as you well know. I'm a bit of a Kratos fan. So Coccapelli 3803. I'm pretty sure I have followed him, but I don't remember him painting any fists before. Anyway, this is really cool. I think I really like, so this yellow reminds me of my Imperial Fist army, actually. It's a little bit more desaturated. It's not like a kind of real, you see a lot of yellow, especially when you use with some of the contrast paints, that's kind of like really, it's fucking yellow, isn't it? Like banana yellow. Yeah. But I really like, this feels very, very Imperial Fisted to me. This kind of gets me right in the feels, because it's I'd imagine the sort of way that I would have painted the Kratos. How do I still have my fists on me? So no, I really like it. I like the weathering. I like the excessive weathering, but not over the top weathering.
Yeah,
I think it's just standout. This is top tier.
The tracks are particularly fantastic.
Oh, absolutely right. Wish I could paint tracks that well.
Yeah, they're excellent. Right, let's have a look at the next one. Giles, why don't we get you to do? So I want to say crit immune paints. Why don't you do this one, Giles?
No. What a lovely Night Lord's Contemptor that is. I like the it's a very blue, very rich.
Yeah.
And I like the browns you can see particularly on its left upper leg. I like the weathering that's gone into the gears and those kind of elements, particularly on that leg. Paint job.
Yeah, that is a really good paint job. It's really clean, it's just really well painted. This is a very talented.
Very obviously Night Lord's blue as well. Like blues we've talked previously about, like it's one of those ones that's, if you're painting Ultramarines, how light or how dark do you go? If you're painting Night Lords, kind of how much purple do you kind of add in there? I think Giles is right. It's a really rich blue. Love this. Great base as well. Fucking awesome.
Yeah. So I have a feeling. I have a feeling it might be the Make It Epic guys who do the 3D printed base kind of like additions. So they do like the cactuses, don't they? Which reminds me of Wild West. Cool. But I think that it might be some of those along with some kind of cork. So if Critman paints, if you let us know how you create the base, because it looks really sexy, just write in the comments below, because we'd love to know. So we've got Fingers RFW. So we've got a rather lovely Palatine Blade squad here, with Lucius as well. So I haven't kind of painted up the Lucius model, but he's absolutely beautiful. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And it's really cool to see him with some Palatine blades as almost like a bodyguard, I guess. Very cool photo, definitely worth following. Emperor's Children range from a magenta purple to this kind of more lavender style purple. I think all of them are valid, and these just are really well painted and very beautiful. And I think the standout thing for me is the swords, very unusually painted, kind of silvery, kind of molten metal kind of sword here, which I haven't seen before, which I think, yeah, really.
Yeah, I think RFW is like a gaming collector. I think
Yeah,
it
I'm sure
stands
there's a
for
few of them.
what?
I'm sure there's a few of them.
Yeah, I think it's rapid fire wargaming.
Oh, right.
There's a guy I speak to every so often who's painting some Iron Warriors as well. I think he's a watcher of the show. But yeah, these are really, really cool. So I think a lot of these guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're all kind of quite new to Heresy.
Okay.
And they're all sort of coming over from 40k and playing a proper game, but they're bringing their sick painting skills with them, as you can.
Yeah, fair play, because these are amazing. So
yeah, I love these. These are really good.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the next one, and John, you can do the next one, which is
yes,
your
please.
master paintings, Kratos. Another Kratos from you.
Like, I've said it for years. I think Nathaniel is one of my favourite painters. I think his stuff is just so good. Like, I think much like Andy Wardle, I really like the way he lights the miniature. Like, I think that's the thing that really sort of draws this. There's nothing that actually draws your eye to a certain part, but it's just looks great from every angle. Again, very obviously in Ultramarines, and we talked about the blue previously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the guy is super talented. Just a great. This kind of reminds me of Heresy from sort of 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
When people were really starting to get their heads around like how the paint style differed from some of the other sort of GW stuff.
I think I agree with that, and I think that this is a really good example of how your model does not need to have really high contrast on it to look. As long as it's well painted, it's neat and tidy, flourishes of transfers, a bit of battle damage here and there, it can still look good despite it not having that high level of contrast. And I think that that's really important, because I love having high contrast on models, but despite that, this looks excellent.
But that's your style. I think this is the thing, right? I think having sort of looked in Nathaniel's sort of body of work for a number of years, like I do think, like with yourself and like with people like Miles from Little Legends, like you can pick their stuff out of a lineup.
Yeah.
Like if you were to lay it out on the table with other people's Kratos, you'd instantly be able to go, I know who painted that, I know who painted that, I know that. I think having that distinct style without it kind of like really standing out, I think is real testament to just how skilled he is. He's a fucking shit-hot painter. Yeah. Like shit-hot painter. Yeah. Criminally underfollowed on Instagram as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't think he does take commissions, and he does some stuff for GW, and you get to see some new stuff from him, but I don't think it's his full-time job, right? So I think that he just
don't believe so, but God, he should be.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, and we've also got Lorgar_42. So Giles, I think, correct me if I think this is Kerry who came to the event.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
So I may have seen this in person. It's a spicy model, the Mastodon, isn't it? Got a lot of time for it. Absolute chonk. Lining it up here, it's a pain, but Kerry pulled it out the bag here. It looks great. And all the better when it's charging across the battlefield and disgorging multiple squads of Gal Vorback. So what more could you ask for?
Yeah, absolutely. I also believe this is the first model that Kerry painted with an airbrush as well.
Oh,
really? So imagine tackling this as your first model, eh? The brass balls on the guy.
So the one thing I would point out here about this model, and I hope it is Kerry, I'm
sure it
is around the metallic. So what I think he's done here as well, which is really good to see, is that he hasn't just based the metallics all silver and then just given them a dry brush. Like, there must be about 2 or 3 different types of metallics here used on the tank, and I think that's really important to differentiate your metallics. So if you're looking at ways to do your las cannons, you can see that he's got this kind of brassy color, and then on the kind of like the coils in the center, he's got this copper color as well. So I think that if you are painting metallics, try and use 3 minimum on your kind of your bigger tanks, and I think it makes it look really interesting. So yeah, so go have a look at these images. Go give him a follow if you don't already.
Yeah, he's brand new to Instagram, I think, as well. So yeah, definitely go give him a little shout. Anyone that's encountered Kerry at an event will know what absolute superstar he is. So
yeah,
go give some love.
Absolutely. So I think these are our last 2. So we have a whip, a work in progress here, and this one stood out to me because I'm not massively keen on the White Scars range. I think some of the models are excellent, like the Mark II Praetor, but some of the models I am probably sort of less enthusiastic about. And one of those models I'm less enthusiastic about is Kinjar, or whatever his name is. But I thought this was a great conversion of this kind of like single-handed kind of blade that he's got. And this helmet as well, I thought was really unique and really cool, because usually he has the dragon helm, but I actually think this, whatever helmet is used here, is actually cooler than the dragon helm. So it's really cool to see these kind of like little conversions, little things that you can do, just with some other GW pieces and some brass rod. I thought it was really, really excellent. So go give Hampsus Hobbies a follow if you don't already. And John, do you want to finish up with the good word?
No, I don't, because I'll happily follow. Again, really, really cool. I think I'm trying to work out where a lot of these bits have come from, to be honest with you. I know that the helm is from the Dark Angels, Angel Tears.
Angels Tears,
Blood Angels.
Yeah.
The red ones.
Yeah.
Again, a really cool bit. Like, I've got a few of these kicking around for when I eventually get to do some chaplains, or I did Moritat with one of these once. But yeah, I'm assuming it's some sort of herald.
Yeah, I think so. Or, I mean, it could be a chaplain, could be a librarian, could be a herald, couldn't it? It could be any number of things, I think. But,
exactly. Really cool. Okay, could just be some fucking fancy Vexilla. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this is.
So I think I can name all the bits here. So maybe the good word can tell us. So we've got the helmet from the Angel's Tears. We've got a generic Mark III resin backpack. We have a Ashen Circle shoulder pad. We have Chaplain Erebus's body.
That's where the body's from, yeah.
We have Zardi Lyak's staff. And I think that might be an Emperor's Children Palatine blade arm, which is holding the staff. I am less certain about the dead body. Oh, it's a Phalanx Warder head on the dead body, I think.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's an Ultramarines destroyer, doesn't it?
Yeah, something like that. But
yeah, looks like it. My only other comment would be, please clean your keyboard, for the love of God.
oh my God, stay in
it. Good feedback from Giles there. Good, excellent. Right, let's have a look at the next one, because I think we've got Heresy Thursdays next.
It has. Oh no. Oh yes.
Yeah.
No. But yes. No, I was expecting to be, because I forgot we had this.
So, Solar Auxilia players had been waiting an extremely long time for their Liber Imperium to drop, and they received their book on a Saturday, and only to find that the Carnodon and other units,
most of the good stuff wasn't in it.
So they had to wait and wait and wait, and then wait even longer for their Solar Auxiliary PDF, which is similar to what happened to the Legion Astartes rule. So I think that dropped much quicker than this did. But it does have some key units like the Carnodon within it, because that was a great tank, beautiful looking tank, really useful tank in the Solar list in Heresy 1.0, and it is now back in the game thanks to this PDF.
What felt so weird about the Carnodon was the fact that was quite a recent addition.
Yeah, relatively recent.
Was quite new, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Now, fucking bin that off."
Yeah,
they can have nothing,
though, aren't they? Because they were out pre-COVID. I'm sure.
Yeah,
It's a little while.
Yeah, what it's very difficult to tell what the rationale is behind it. I suspect that it's going to stay in resin, I think, is my first kind of my gut instinct about lots of these kind of exemplary battle PDFs or the legacy PDFs. So that suggests to me it's not coming in plastic, and as a result, it just got shunted into a PDF. But people have it, and along with this, I'll give a shout out to our most recent kind of Tactica. So me, John, and Lee went through the Solar Auxilia artillery, which is where we looked at most of the PDF, not all of it, but most of it, and kind of went through and gave you our tactical assessment. So if you haven't watched that video and you're part of the Patreon, go give that a look. If you aren't part of the Patreon, why not? And you can go give that a look, especially if you're a Solar player, because we did an hour and a half's kind of in-depth study into the Solar and the mech artillery, but really useful for the Solar Auxilia players to have.
What we also noticed as well is they seem to have ported over some stuff that I don't believe was in a previous list, such as the Trojan, the little Chimera chassis boy with the crane.
Go on, Giles.
Mr.
I
Fix-It.
was going to say the Trojan's back. I don't think the Davenite Lodge Priest was in there before.
Is he in the Legacies unit?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's in the.
Is he any good?
I don't know. We'll have to have a look at another Tactica. Navigators and Lodge Priest Tactica, I think. But it's great to see that. It just took a little bit of time, and I think the other thing to mention is that Demons players and Cults and Militia players still don't have their PDF as of kind of making this. So hopefully this week it will drop as a Christmas surprise for those guys, because I think really hard done to waiting for their PDFs to drop for so long. Right, let's have a look at the next thing, please.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry, go on, John.
No, my point was going to be just a waste of everyone's time. So, speaking of things, however, that aren't a waste of time.
No. So this was a really big release at the end of last week. So we got shown this. Now, we don't know exactly when it's going to drop. You know, it might be in the next couple of weeks. It might be in the next couple of months. The last one we had, I think, was the Scorpius that was shown, and then we had this as well. So I think in the general, we knew it was coming, because if it's removed from the Forge World website, the resin version goes a few months or weeks later. That's like, it comes out in plastic, right? And so the other one to mention is the Cerberus, which is no longer, I think, on the Forge World website. Am I right about that?
It made me wet.
Disappeared too.
So that suggests that might be coming out in plastic as well. However, when we did artillery as our Tactica kind of Patreon only video, we did do a deep dive into the Typhon, and it is remarkably good and really exciting to use. One of the things I'll say is that although it fills the Lord of War slot, it doesn't have the same rules as a super heavy, so it can get blown up immediately by a lucky multi-melter shot. But the fact that it's in plastic and you're not dealing with the resin is absolutely amazing. And I suspect because it's in plastic, and I reckon it will probably be priced around 50 quid or something from Cryptic Cabin, I think you'll probably see a lot more of these than you probably would have done had it remained in resin.
Yeah, it's still I mean, obviously the real kind of madness is the fact you can squadron them now as well, right?
Yeah
You can squadron them. It's the Dreadhammer Siege Cannon is absolutely no joke. I think we identified it quite early as something that could really kind of be a counter to the Dreadnought meta that we were really afraid was going to spring up over. Now, that's kind of not currently really being a huge concern. I think maybe because a lot of people have, certainly event organisers have been sort of comping it a little bit. But I mean, this is so iconic. This is such an iconic vehicle, and to have it in plastic. I mean, if we do get a plastic Cerberus, I think I might actually lose my tiny mind. Cerberus is kind of one of those vehicles. I've never owned one. I've always wanted one, and actually, in the new edition, it's really good. Like it's really it's this and the Cerberus have sat there, kind of in the shadows, just being sort of lurking, waiting for their time in the sun. I think it's coming, guys.
Yeah, Giles, any thoughts on the Typhon? Will you be grabbing one? You know, what's your thoughts?
I'm probably not going to pick one up. I think it looks amazing. Got a lot of time for it aesthetically. I think in game, I'm not quite as high on it as you guys.
Yeah.
Largely due to heavy units getting re-rollable from so Terminators, for example.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing. Love it. It's a great kit to have in plastic. And on the topic of things disappearing from the Forge World website, I've not checked myself, but I'm told jet bikes have gone
Jet bike's
now.
gone, mate.
Yeah.
Hopefully get some plastic
yeah.
bikes.
Yeah. Really exciting. So I will come back. So just to mention that point that Giles made. So the Typhon Blast is is AP3, but it's rending. I think it's rending 4 up. Is it, John?
4 up.
4
Yeah.
up. So if you're a Terminator, you would be re-rolling your
But
fail.
it is also brutal 4. I want to say off the top of my head. So every time you've got 4 chances to roll that 4 up. Every geezer that this splashes over. So I think that, I think it's pretty devastating.
Yeah, so we shall see how good it is. But if you want a kind of a more in detailed kind of assessment of it, then go check out the Patreon as well. Right, let's go on to the next bit, because I think we have a list to review.
I think we do. Yeah, we asked for some lists a couple of weeks ago, and we've been sent one by Nate, who's one of our patrons. So it's a Blood Angel list, and we've not done a deep dive for the Blood Angels yet. So this is kind of quite exciting, I think.
Correct. So let's go to the next. Oh, should I give it a read, actually? So
why don't you read?
guys,
I can't read. So
so hey guys, just starting this list up, and I'd love to hear what you think. I expect to have it on the table in the next couple of months. It's a traitor, unless I'm running Sanguinius Blood Angels Day of Revelation list. Thanks for taking a look. Really love the show, and I'm a happy Patreon, Nate, as well. So I really love that it's a traitor trait list. I mean, it can be used either or, couldn't it? But let's get our traitor hats on for this, and let's see if it's got sort of a menacing, sort of suitably bloodthirsty, corn-driven list for the Blood Angels. Let's take a look. So we have at the start a Praetor, who of course has Master of the Legion, unlocks the Rite of War. So he's got Thrall of the Red Thirst. I'm not entirely sure what that does, but the most important thing is he unlocks Day of Revelation. He's got Paragon Blade, Mastercrafted Weapon, and a Warhawk jump pack. We've got a Librarian, Psychic Discipline, Telekinesis, Force Weapon. He's got an Axe, Psychic Hood, and a Warhawk jump pack. We've got 3 tactical squads, and they look completely bare bones. These really are.
Yes,
these are just for scoring. So that's pretty cool. So I'm assuming from this, that means that in Day of Revelations, the compulsory troop choice do not need to be don't need to be.
Tell you what, I've been doing some tapping away here. So I'm going to read Thrall of the Red Thirst to you.
Excellent. Do it.
So Thrall of the Red Thirst is a traitor only warlord trait. So obviously it's nice. I think it's nice for the legions to have like a sort of a baked in traitor and loyalist warlord traits in occasion. So if at the start of the controlling player's charge subphase there are enemy units with at least one model within 12 inches of a warlord with this trait, or any model in a unit this warlord has joined, and the warlord in any unit he has joined are eligible to make a charge, then the controlling player must declare a charge for the warlord in any unit he's joined targeting the enemy unit. So we see this quite often a lot of the rules. If you're in range of a charge and you can charge, you have to charge. However, there are some plus points to this. Whenever this warlord and any units he has joined make a successful charge that is not disordered, so obviously you could, in theory, disorder it with a reaction. The warlord and all of the models in the unit he has joined gain +2 attacks. So essentially they're getting rage. Delightful. In addition, any army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's movement phase. So rage 2 on the charge, you must declare a charge, but you can disorder it. However, as we've seen from the FAQ a couple of weeks ago, like they've clarified how disorder works, and the disordering charges is a risky business, especially against Blood Angels.
Yeah, definitely. So I just have, while you were doing that, John, as well, I just had a look at Day of Revelation. So where before in the old rules you were limited on taking assault.
You have to take assault rays,
you don't need to do that. So basically, for this army, everything that can deep strike must go into deep strike, and then you choose a turn between 2 and 4 when it all comes down, and then from there, of course, you assault out of it. There are some additional rules, but essentially that's it. So it's just all this kind of Rite of War does is just ensure that your models come down at the point that you want them to come down. So you've got 3 tack squads, which I assume is just going to sit on objectives. We've got a 5-man reconnaissance squad with Nemesis bolters and an augury scanner. We've got an 8-man.
The all important Vox in there as well, assuming that you're going to put them up high on a nice vantage point so you can re-roll your scatters as well. I'm imagining that's what he's there for.
Absolutely. So we've got an 8-man Crimson Paladin squad at 375 points. We've got 2 lots of Dawnbreakers, and the Dawnbreaker champion, each one of them has an Axum edition, and they also come with melter bombs as well. We've got a squad of Angel's Tears, and one of them is, in fact, they are all armed with Iliastus assault cannons and melter bombs. We've got a Contemptor Incendious Dreadnought, which is, of course, the Dreadnought with Deep Strike, and that's armed with 2 Iliastus assault cannons. We've got a 10-man heavy support squad with las cannons and an augury scanner, and we've got a 10-man squad with Iliastus assault cannons in a rhino as well. So my perception of this list is I'll tell you what, I'll go to you, John, and then I'll go to you, Giles, and you can tell us. So my perception of this list is that it's quite strong, I think. So in terms of deep striking, you've got Praetor, Librarian, Crimson Paladins, your 20 Dawnbreakers, your Angel's Tears, your Contemptor, all coming down in the first turn, but you've got an awful lot of long range support as well there for knocking out your tanks and knocking out 2 wound Terminators, and you've got a really cheeky Iliastus assault cannon squad just roaming around in a rhino, kind of doing their thing for kind of support when necessary. My only feedback I would give on this is drop the Iliastus assault cannons from the Contemptor Incendious Dreadnought and go for the melt guns. I think that Iliastus assault cannons on that Dreadnought are too expensive, and the melter guns in the fist will be more useful to you. John, what's your thoughts on this?
I like it. I like it a lot. I was actually thinking this is kind of quite strong. You've got an awful lot of threat. I'm guessing the telekinetic Librarian is there to give you the 4-up bubble. So you're going to be dropping in kind of close quarters, and then he's going to be there in the middle, giving you that kind of 4-up and invulnerable sort of dome of unbreakableness.
Yeah.
Again, echo you on the Incadius Dreadnought. Yeah, get rid of the assault cannons and take 2 melter guns. You've not really got much apart from the las cannon squad. You've not got a great deal of like ranged threat, but also as well that Dreadnought is going to want to go fuck up other Dreadnoughts, really, I suspect.
Yeah.
And like assault cannons against other dreads is pointless, whereas two melt guns is fucking 2 melt guns. Let's not be around the bush, right?
Yeah, I agree. Agreed.
My question at the start was going to be what the Crimson Paladins do, and I wasn't sure if they were deep striking or not. But I think this is. I would be, if I were playing a kind of a castled army, I would be concerned about what I was going to do against this. And again, the heavy support marines with the assault cannons in a rhino, I think is.
Yeah, I think that's inspiring.
I think that unit's going to go.
I've got one more thing to say, but I will go to Giles, and maybe Giles, you can give us an assessment of this list, because you're a man who deep strike an awful lot. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend to only deep strike 1 unit. It's just quite a large unit. So the Nuncio Vox and the snipers, because in Day of Revelations you select a point and the first unit comes in within 6 inches.
Yeah.
So the Nuncio Vox probably not needed for that because you aren't scattering.
Yeah.
And you probably don't need the Nuncio Vox for in terms of night fighting to prevent the -1 leadership, because anyone on the ground gets fearless for until the big boys come in turn 2 onwards. It's turn 2 to 4 you can select to come in, but you'd be a fool to not select 2. Do the Crimson Paladins, do they come with deep strike?
Yes, yes,
right?
they do. Well, no, they have it natively. It's nothing to do with the Right of War.
Okay, well, that's really cool. And Angel's Tears, I can't see that they have jump packs.
They do.
So
they come with jump packs. Yeah.
Okay, well there we go. There's that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the Dawnbreakers, you've probably got 1 character in each unit. They're very spicy. Might struggle against Terminators. I would also suggest excuse me, swapping out the assault cannons, like you guys have said, I'd consider some speeders or something.
Okay.
I guess if they can deep strike, then they have to in this Rite of War, don't they? So perhaps that is actually a terrible idea. You could go some box dreads with some double las or something. That might help with the long range firepower, because if your las cannons get punked, then the assault cannons aren't hurting them, and the rest of the units, apart from the guys with melter bombs, the Dawnbreakers come with melter bombs. That's hot. If it's just the sergeant, it's a bit hard. If it's the whole squad, that's awesome. So I'd say it's a bit of a list. If you can fight back against the deep strike, it could be a really tricky game. But if you deep strike into a gun line and you've sniped one or more of the units of augury scanners in their units with some sneaky return fires, perhaps through the snipers, and then obviously killing one turn one, then it could be a really spicy matchup.
Yeah, you've got to rely heavily on that Alpha Strike, because your scoring unit, I wouldn't trust firm. I could push them with my piss. They're really weak, and I think I'd maybe, if you've got a couple of points to lose somewhere, maybe consider something, even just to give the sergeants just a 2-up save, just to make them a little more survivable.
So my experience of Iliastus as a heavy support is that a full 10-man squad is quite a big point sink in one unit, but also it attracts fire as well, because people are like, well, I've got to destroy that unit. So I would be tempted to make that a 5 or 6-man squad, and then either add more guys to your tactical squads, or get a Vexilla and Artificer armor on your 3 tacticals. I think probably would be
because those assault cannons have got such a short range, and let's be honest, popping a rhino is like,
it's easy.
Fucking just blow at it and fall over these days. So that's that, and that will kind of really really hamper that unit's like effectiveness by losing its, unless if you go first, fucking happy days. But if you go second, then chances are there's not a lot of stuff that's starting on the board. So if you do end up going second and you've got anyone with half decent, like you come against someone with just 2 Scorpiuses, you're in for a world of hurt right at the beginning of the game.
However, I would say it's a pretty. I think that's a pretty solid list. 3.
Oh, don't get me wrong. That is solid. Like, that is going to do some damage. Situationally, right? Like with everything, you can't build an all covers list. Like, and not only that, but you also can't build a list that will counter everything else. Like, it's just not going to happen. I like a lot of the synergies. I really like the telekinesis librarian. I'm assuming that's what you're doing with him in there, so that he basically, like, you come down, and then he bubbles, and do you get a shroud or feel no pain against attacks when you come down with Day of Revelation? Have I made that up?
I don't know.
You used to, didn't you? You used to get a feel no pain in the first term when they arrived. But I've not really looked at Blood much this. Probably because I think I'm terrible.
No, but what I suspect you probably do have is some sort of. I think the reaction synergizes. I think. Yeah, so I think the Wrath of Angels gives you something. It gives you a shrouded save, I think.
So what have we really decided here? We decided overall we like the list, right? But we'd maybe drop a couple of support marines to beat the tactical marines up a time. It's making them a bit more survivable. Get rid of the Vox, that's just waste points. And the Contemptor and Candius just wants 2 melter guns instead, right? And everything else can kind of just crack on as is.
Guns?
I'm not sure they can. I think they're limited on what they can take.
Yeah. I think it's melters, bolters, flamers, or assault cannons, I think.
Fair enough. My other suggestion would be definitely go for night fighting. So when you drop in, you're pinning as much stuff as possible. So it either
100%. That is horrible.
Or Overwatch when you go and slice it up.
Yeah, I had a very unpleasant time against Jason's deep striking Night Lords. That not only was it night, but they also caused fear.
Awesome.
Fun.
Awesome.
But good list. We like this.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And I'm assuming my final comment is Dawnbreakers and Crimson Paladins are not loyalist only. I assume that they are just kind of generic and they can be used in any list. So yeah. Right, let's have a look at the next one. Although I think we're probably going on to our main show now.
I think we are. I think this is the fluff out of the way.
Yes.
I think it's just the meat and potatoes of the episode now.
Perfect. Right.
The main event that we're all here for.
Exactly. So we're going to take a break. Now, and then to join us after the break, we will go through an in-depth dive into the Sons of Horus.
Cannot.
Right, welcome back to the main part of our show. So I think Sons of Horus, as John was saying right at the start of the show, are in an interesting place. I think that we've talked previously on shows about Sons of Horus and their comparison with version 1 and version 2. So what we said previously was that the Sons of Horus characters were able to unlock a range of interesting list builds. So Malagus, for example, I think unlocked veterans and reavers. Lupercal unlocked Justarin and veterans. And that was able to synergize quite nicely with a range of different rights of war. So, for example, Orbital Assault combined with Horus or Malagus meant that your veterans were able to go into your compulsory troop slots. So that was able to unlock what felt like quite an elite unit, which I think fit quite well with the fluff, and it also gave you lots of different synergies that within the Sons of Horus kind of list building process. What I think happened though with version 2.0, with the exception of the Imperial Fierce, is that lots of characters were not able to unlock different kinds of units as troops, and Malagus lost that ability and Horus lost that ability, and as a result I think that the Sons of Horus disproportionately suffered as a result for that. So they were able to create some quite interesting and diverse list builds, but in this version it feels like they've not been able to do that as much. That's not to say that they are a worse legion than they were before, but I think that Sons of Horus players have probably taken a lot of getting used to, because they might have needed to add new units into their army that they didn't need or hadn't had previously, or alternatively they might be kind of head scratching, kind of going, well, how do I play in the same way that I wanted to play in version 1.0 and haven't been able to now. Giles, you play Sons of Horus an awful lot. I mean, it's your main army really. So what's your kind of assessment of the situation from the transition from 1.0 to 2.0?
So in 1.0, they could do anything really. They could go and they could punch stuff and they could shoot stuff, and if you're shooting close stuff, all the better. Yeah. Now they're not terrible by any means, but they were one of the premier 1.0 Legion choices, and I definitely wouldn't say that that's the case in 2.0. Cool. They're a combat legion now, so that's quite a big change. Unfortunately, this edition doesn't favour combat quite as much, but I still think when it comes to punching people in the face, Sons of Horus are some of the best at it.
Yeah.
The Legion trait is, I have a love-hate relationship with the Legion trait. The fact that the disordered stratagem turns it off is very frustrating. Yeah. But when it doesn't get disordered, it kicks dick. Yeah. There's very few units in the game that will outfight a tooled up unit of Justarin. I'm sure we'll come to them in a minute, but they are primo smashers. I think they've got some good unit choices, which we'll cover in a bit more detail later. Yeah. Like you say, I think the across the board changes to the reduction of things that make interesting things troops throughout the edition does really hamper the Sons of Horus, particularly with Malakus. Like you say, he used to be 2 Writers of War in 1, because he made the Vets troops, gave you pride, and then also have Master of the Legion, so you could actually take Orbital Assault, which is something I'd always wanted to do, but never quite got round to. So yeah, I'd say they're a mixed bag. They're not the worst, but they're definitely not the best. When I've not played with my sons for a little while, but now I've got an understanding of 2.0. I'm kind of giving them the 2.0 zhuzh. I'm looking forward to, in the new year, playing a lot more games with them with a proper 2.0 list. Now we know what that looks like.
Yeah. And John, what attracted to you to the Sons of Horus? What was it that kind of made you kind of go, I want to do this as a new army?
Well, that's a really good question, and I think the reason is, so I've played apart from my Mechanicum a little bit, which is actually sort of still builds similarly to my Iron Warriors. Like we're in a shooty meta, right? And I play probably one of the best shooty armies, and it's very straightforward. I think it's probably the best way of looking at it. Now, I wanted something that, for starters, I wanted something that had a lot lower model count deliberately, because I kind of want to do some more traveling with my armies this year, and I want to attend some events a bit further afield, and lugging a minimum of 2 cases around everywhere, because I'm always taking 100 infantry plus vehicles.
Yeah,
I wanted an army that was deliberately really elite, and I think the Sons of Horus are, when you lean into the elite nature of them, that's when you start to see the real power of the Legion. I think you've got to build them in quite a specific way to get the best out of them, personally.
Yeah.
But I think the model range is great. I think they're obviously look at these two guys. They're just so hot, right? I mean, fucking hell. I'm painting some different colours that I've not painted before. Like, I painted black on my Templars, but this is a bit of a different way of doing things. Like, I've never painted anything green before. But mainly it was because I wanted something that was more nuanced. It was deliberately going to be more difficult to play and play well. I've been playing 2.0 on easy mode for the last 6 months, and I want to test myself a little bit. I want a new painting project, and like I said, I wanted a deliberately kind of elite army.
Yeah.
And Sons of Horus was just the one, really. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, some really good rationales and kind of thoughts before we get into it. So let's make a start. Let's have a look what's next. So we've got the Legion rule now. Giles alluded to this one. So Merciless Fighters is the Sons of Horus Legion rule. So during a turn in which a unit made up entirely of models with the Legionist Astartes Sons of Horus special rule successfully charges or are successfully charged.
That's important.
The strength of all melee attacks made against any model in that unit that does not have the vehicle unit subtype suffers a modifier of -1. Models with the vehicle unit type and this special rule instead inflicts an additional 3 hits for a total of 1d6 plus 3 hits, or 2d6 plus 3 hits if the vehicle has a super heavy subtype on units composed of models that do not have the vehicle unit type when conducting a ramming attack. So I think for me, the kind of like really important things here are the Legion rule goes off if you are charged or you get charged. So I think that's super interesting. And as Giles was saying, it's interesting because you can switch off this Legion rule with the disordered kind of hold the line reaction, but it will always go off if you get charged, right? Which I think is really interesting. I assume it just lasts for 1 turn, does it as well, Giles? Yeah, just one turn.
That's right. So it's 1 turn. However, if you are in combat and then a second unit charges you in the following turn, then it procs the Legion.
Then it starts again.
Yeah. So that's a really nice little. That's a really lovely little thing there. Context on the disordered interaction with hold the line. It's the key wording of successfully charges.
Right.
That's the bit that bones you. If it was first round of combat or something, then that'd be real juicy.
If I am a Justarian unit and I'm about to get charged, and I decide to do the hold the line reaction, and then the unit charging into me, is that described as a successful charge if they do make it, even though I've done the hold the line, or not?
That's a good question. Oh, it's still if they make it into combat, then I
It's
guess
still
it's
a-
still a successful charge.
So
You've been-
so if you get charged, it will always go off, right? Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, that's interesting. Okay, and then the biggest thing for me, I think, here is that on the first round of combat, Terminators with Power Fists or anything with Power Fists at Strength 8 cannot double out your Sons of Horus multi-wound units, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it makes them essentially kind of like a quasi semi eternal warrior kind of for the first round of combat, right?
They're battle hardened, basically, is probably the best way of looking
Best
at
way
it.
to describe them for the first round. Okay.
Yeah, but as we come on to it, getting charged is not always the boning in with some of the units that it is with other legions. I think that's also, you know, you haven't been quite so concerned about getting charged as you have with being the charger.
Cool. Okay. And then I think ramming is great in this edition. So having additional 3 is great. And of course, don't forget that, you know, it says specifically vehicle unit subtype. So that does mean that your contemptors get the -1 strength, right? In that, so because that's just specific to vehicles. Fantastic. Right, let's have a look at we'll go through these individual other parts about the armories and the dark emissaries as we go. Let's have a look at the next part. So I wonder, John, if you could take us through Death Dealer. It's quite wordy, of course, but just give us the nuts and bolts.
You ready for some words, boys?
I'm ready.
Okay, right. This advanced reaction may be made once per battle during the opposing player's shooting phase. When an enemy unit declares a shooting attack targeting a friendly unit under the reactive player's control, composed entirely of models with the Legion Astartes, Sons of Horus special rule, that is within 12 of the attacking unit. Before the enemy unit resolves any to hit rolls, the reacting unit may make a shooting attack targeting the unit that triggered this reaction, increasing its ballistic skill by +1 for the duration of that reaction. A unit that makes a shooting attack as part of a Death Dealer's reaction may not make any attacks indirectly, so you can't fire barrage. And vehicles may only fire defensive weapons. Template weapons may only be used as part of a Death Dealer's reaction if the target unit is within 8 inches and effectively use Wall of Death instead of firing normally. Once a shooting attack is fully resolved and all casualties caused by it removed from play, the enemy unit may resolve its own shooting attack, but if models remove casualties due to this reaction may still attack.
So my initial gut on that one is that it's really underwhelming in comparison to some others.
I totally agree with you.
Giles, is that your assessment of the advanced reaction?
It's fucking terrible. To be quite honest, the shooting first, great, but then the last line, though models removed as casualties due to this reaction may still attack. Don't really get the point on that one, unless it's pinning. But I'm sure there's a sentence in the recent FAQ about the order that kind of thing takes place. So not sure even that's relevant. It doesn't really make much sense. So I think the friendly unit bit has confused a lot of people. I've seen 6 or 7 different iterations of how the people are wondering how this works. So if you're a Sons of Horus player, I'd actively encourage you to write to the Heresy FAQ email address and ask them what on earth this means. Because some people are saying the friendly unit means another unit can shoot back. If that was the case, that would be pretty cool. I'm not so sure if it is myself, but a return fire with +1 BS within 12, if that's what I think is intended, because that would match up with the old Death Dealer rules, is a bit pants really, because if you've got a shooting unit, or if units you want to be shooting returning fire with, units that are good at shooting, and if they're within 12 inches of an enemy, it's probably bad news for that unit long term. And if you're about to be charged, they're probably just not going to shoot you if they're bolt pistols, if it's an assault unit. So it's really niche where this actually matters. I'd love it if Forgeroy gave it a little zhuzh and kind of cleared up exactly how they intend it to operate, and maybe make it a little bit better based on what most people seem to have interpreted it as, which is the +1 BS return fire under 12 inches.
I can't even think of a good unit that you would want to leverage this on, right? I just like, it kind of baffles me really. I think this is really underwhelming. They deserve something way more kind of assault orientated, similar to Space Wolves or Imperial Fist. And it's just, I can see Sons of Horus players just never using this, just be like, what's the fucking point? Why would you ever like, Return Fire is just as good, right? You know, I mean, I know it's +1 BS, but it has to be within 12 inches. So yeah, really underwhelming.
Bit bomb.
Yeah, cool. Right, let's have a look at the next one. Let's hope the Warlord traits make up for it. Giles, why don't you take us through Chosen by the Dark Gods, which is a traitor-only Warlord trait?
Yeah, so this one, I think it's quite fun. I've only used it once or twice, but it certainly adds an element of chance and entertainment. So it's traitor only, like you said. The controlling player of a warlord with this trait may choose to roll a d6 at the start of that player's turn. So you don't have to. On the roll of a 2 to 5, the warlord's strength and toughness are increased by 1 until the start of the controlling player's next turn. Great if you're about to fly into combat and you're at full health or full wounds. So that's pretty fun. The +1 toughness is huge if you're about to go and charge a unit of Terminators or something, or about to be charged by them. Then on the roll of a 6, you regain a single wound as well as that. So that's pretty tasty. But then the counteraction to that, if you roll a 1, you suffer a wound which you can't take any saves, including invulnerable saves or damage mitigation rolls, but you can get these wounds back through this warlord trait. And then for the extra reaction you get is during the movement phase. So probably not one of the phases you'd want an extra reaction, but it depends on the list, I think, a bit. So it's certainly entertaining. I'd give it that.
I absolutely love that, right? Because it makes, I mean, the toughness is the bit. I get the strength is important, especially if you've got a Thunderhammer or a Power Fist or whatever, but the is the Thunderhammer ×2 strength, is it, or is it just that strength? Right. So I can really see that being mega useful. But the toughness is the biggie for me, which is that you combine, you got toughness 5 basically, and it might be the second round of combat and you would have toughness 5, but on that first round of combat you're then combining that with the -1 strength as well, so it really makes your leader, your praetor or your delegatus or whatever, quite immune to that kind of those instant deaths.
Power Fist only winning you 3s, and Paragon Blades winning you 4s.
Yeah, that is really nice, really nice. I really love that. Wolf of Luna, so it's a loyalist only one, so you're either kind of an Isfan 3 force perhaps, or alternatively you are a force gone off on your own expedition and you've kind of found out about the heresy while you're off exploring the galaxy. So a warlord with this trait may only join a unit composed entirely of models with both the Legion Astartes, Sons of Horus Special Rule, and the Loyalist Allegiance. Both the warlord and any unit it gains gains +1 attack on any turn in which they successfully charge or are successfully charged by an enemy unit that includes any models with both the Legion Astartes X Special Rule and the Traitor Allegiance. So you just fucking hate traitors, basically. These increases are in addition to any other bonuses granted by other special rules. In addition, your additional reaction comes from the assault phase. Really nice, lots of extra attacks there. Are Justaerin traitor specific, Giles?
No, they're not anymore. Used to be, but no longer.
Interesting. Okay. So basically just extra attacks, really nice. I'm not sure it's quite as good as Chosen by the Dark Gods, but it is one that goes on the entire unit than just
Yeah, again, I think it's a case of how you're going to build your characters into units, right? But
Exactly.
Chosen by the Dark Gods is the one. Anything where there's a little bit of chance, anything where you can. I'm a sucker for anything where I roll a dice and something really amazing or something really shit might happen. It's something that really appeals to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And John, do you want to take us through the Armor of Pride?
I can. The first time in any battle when a warlord with this trait is reduced to 0 wounds, for any reason, the controlling player must immediately take a leadership test for that model. If the test is failed, then the warlord is removed as a casualty as normal. But if the test is passed and the warlord is not removed as a casualty, remains in play and regains D3.
Woo!
This has no effect against attacks or rules which remove the model as a casualty without inflicting wounds, or against attacks with the instant death special rule.
Oh, interesting.
In addition, an army whose warlord has this trait may make an additional reaction during the opposing player's shooting phase, as long as the warlord has not been removed as a casualty. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually think in the Sons of Horus army, I think movement phase reactions are potentially the biggest boon. I'm going to counteract Giles's quibbles with that and say I think movement, getting up in people's grill, is super vital.
Yeah,
but maybe just in the way I built my list. Who knows? We'll discuss maybe my list later on, actually, so you can kind of get my thoughts.
I think the Armour Pride is quite cool. It can obviously be taken by a traitor or a loyalist force, and I quite like the fact it comes back to life. I think it's a shame about the instant death, because I think that it can just be splattered and then can't come back. But I think it could be cool.
A question for you.
Yeah.
When we talk about rules as written, when you are it says attacks made with the instant death special rule.
Yeah.
So if you're being doubled out by a power fist, that doesn't actually give you instant death, does it? It doesn't grant instant death as a rule.
No, I can see what you're saying there. Perhaps Giles can investigate this further while we have a look at the next part, and then
because I think only things like murderous strike would be the or weapons that have instant death.
Yeah, interesting. So that's a lot fewer, isn't it? Right? You don't need to worry about power fist, but perhaps Giles can have a look at that one while we look at the next part.
Just on the warlord traits, just one last thing.
Yeah.
I think Wolf of Luna, the loyalist trait, I think really lends itself to one of the characters we're going to touch on a bit, combined with this trait in like a massive unit of Reavers or something, gets pretty loco. So,
yes.
Cool.
This is the thing that I loved about it, right? Especially when I started reading through the army list, was just the ability to. I actually had this conversation with one of our mutual friends a little while ago about that. I liked the fact that there are these abilities that have these kind of overlapping synergies.
Yeah.
And that it feels kind of a little bit like, I don't know if any of you played much Age of Sigmar in the past, but in Age of Sigmar, there's a lot of mechanics that are built around that they refer to as kind of like tech armies, where on paper things seem kind of quite weak, but when you start bringing these overlapping buffs and synergies, like the power level just kind of spikes hugely. And I think that's Giles will have similar feelings, I'm sure, about the Mechanicum list as well, because that's about the Mechanicum book is the fact that on paper they look like they've maybe been reduced in terms of power, but the way you can buff units and the way you can kind of overlap these different effects kind of really does ramp up the power level. So you've got to be, I think, quite careful about list building of Sons of Horus. I don't think you can build a generic army out necessarily and get the best out of them, but I think you can get some really cool stuff out of them when you kind of really start like delving into like where you can kind of get these boons from. Okay,
that's an interesting assessment. So let's bear that in mind as we go through and see what these warlord traits synergize with if we weren't taking special characters, for example.
Okay, shall we?
That's good. Yeah.
So I found the answer to our question.
Yeah, go for it.
So, if the strength characteristic of an attack is at least double the toughness characteristic (brackets after modifiers) of the target model, the attack gains the instant death special.
Interesting. Okay, really clear. Really clear.
Just when you think you've done something clever, right?
Yeah. So what you're hoping is that in that situation, that your warlord kind of gets killed on the first turn because they haven't been doubled out from like a power fist or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's just the number of wounds that they failed, and then they come back to life. So,
cool.
Right, Giles, why don't you take us through the black reaving rite of?
Right. So the first thing I will say about this rite of war
is the best one.
Well, they're both pretty. I think they're both decent, but not mental. With this one, we need to refer to the FAQ for the Master of Signal and his because it's GeoVox or whatever that bit of equipment.
His Vox Disruptor Array. That's
the one, because in the FAQ you can now turn them off, which is huge for this rite of war.
Okay.
So Sons of Horus models taken as part of this detachment using this rite of war gain Rage 2. Special rule: when they successfully charge an enemy which is already locked in combat with one or more units, or an enemy unit that is the target of at least one other charge in the same charge phase. So with here, I think the bit we want to play on is the target. So you
Correct.
can move a very speedy unit, for example, a speeder.
Like a javelin land speeder, Giles.
But perhaps one might suggest you can then be exactly 12 inches away, fail your charge, fantastic news, but it's the target. That's all you've got to do. So if you then get your combat unit in, then you're triggering that rage.
I'm not necessarily sure, by the way, that failing the charge is so much of an issue, but we'll come to that in a
minute. I mean, you probably don't want your speeder in combat, so. But anyway, they do come with chainswords. So anyway, I divulge. Reaver attack squads may be chosen as troops choices for detachments using this right of war, and when chosen as troops choices, gain line, which is huge. Another FAQ point, Reaver aggressor squads, also the jump pack boys, can now get line and become troops in this as well. Justarian Terminators, chosen as part of a detachment using this right of war, gain deep strike. That's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Limitations: must take a Master of Signals. Boo-hoo, who cares? That's great. And you must include more faster attack choices than heavy support choices, which isn't too much of an issue, I don't think. Not ideal, not a massive negative.
Giles, can you talk to us about the geolocator beacon a little bit more for the Master of Signal?
Yes. So when your Master of Signals is on the table, so don't stick him in deep strike somehow. He gets you re-roll reserves, which is so handy. This list, or this right of war, really leans towards a deep striking assault element, some mobile elements to trigger the rage, and then because it's 2.0, you probably want a heavy support squad or two while you're at it. So I'm actually working on a new a 2.0 ified black reaving list at the moment. So I think it's a really cool right of war, because you've got your Master of Signals, probably with a heavy support squad, your speeders flying around to provide additional long-ranged anti-tank, a couple of units that can pin stuff when you come in, and then in deep strike you've got a plethora of strong Sons of Horus units that do fantastically coming out of a deep strike assault and then charging immediately. So I think this really leans into the narrative of the Sons of Horus. It's great for getting that spear tip right up in your opponent's face. And I think it leans into how the rules writers are trying to aim Sons of Horus to be played as well. So
great.
They're a bully legion, right? And this is a great way of bullying people.
Yeah. It was interesting that you said about the javelins as in order to get the kind of like the charge bonus off, and I think that mobility is quite good. And I know that John, in his list that he's shown us, has shown us kind of 3 javelins filling up the 3 fast attacks, and then for him that will unlock 2 heavy support choices. But the other route which you could go is having kind of units working in parallel with each other, right? So you could have almost like 2 units working together, and they've got to take on a unit at a time, right? And you can be sure that unit will get destroyed. But if you are thinking about kind of single close combat units supported by a javelin, I think that would be really nice, really cool. Let's get your thoughts on this one. So I always feel quite strongly that your close combat units combined with your scoring units is always a bit dangerous, because they're expensive. And they have 2 jobs to do on the tabletop, not just 1. Would you add a couple of tack squads into this or not?
Oh,
you go, John. You go.
Well, I've got recons making up my not compulsory, because actually they're not compulsory, but giving me additional line units, because recons are annoying, but in this list they are going to be so low priority.
Yeah,
they're going to be so far down the pecking order in terms of needing to get rid of them. I've got them with the Nemesis bolters so that they can maybe do a little bit of pinning here and there and kind of pin units in place. But
kill augury scanners as well.
Kill augury scanners, kill an apothecary, that sort of stuff. But they're a cheap, effective way of, and I think as well they kind of fit the they fit the theme quite well because they're kind of like your forward operators.
Hmm.
They're scouting out, and then they are kind of like they are showing the way for everything else to kind of come in and do its work. I think that my thinking with the Sons of Horus is they are, as I said, they're a bully legion, much kind of like the Night Lords. And what it's all about is it's about stacking the board in your favor. So like you're probably not going to want to go into sort of too many 50-50 combats.
Yeah.
Or you want to be going into like you are the overwhelming favorite in this combat, right? If it's a coin toss as to whether your unit's going to bounce off or maybe get killed, then you haven't set the board correctly. Like you're only going to be wanting to go in when it's a case of like, yeah, I'm gonna finish these fuckers off. And by doing that, I've set it up so that I'm the overwhelming favorite here.
Yeah, the only other time I'd say that you don't want to be favorite is if you've got one of your primo combat units and you don't want them to get shot the next turn, so you just multi-charge everything.
Yeah.
Charge a couple of mook squads, like 2 or 3 squads. You won't do them in one turn, but you'll probably do them the next turn. Then that's probably the only time you want to be going in when you aren't the favorite. I would have said exactly the same about the recons. That's my plan. Fill up the compulsory slots with Reavers, and then have a couple of recon squads, like you say, with snipers. I know Rob loves that unit so much, but I think in this type of list, I think they're almost a necessity.
I agree with you.
Cool.
But also, I think as well, I think they build into the theme well enough that people aren't going to roll their eyes at you when you go, here's my 2 recon squads.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll go into a deeper kind of dive into how we might equip those Reavers when we look at that particular unit. But let's have a look at the Long March Rite of War. John, do you want to read us through this one?
Happily. Units made up entirely models with the Legion Astartes Sons of Horus special rule, and the infantry or dreadnought unit type that are part of a detachment using this Rite of War gain +1 to their movement characteristic in the movement phase, only when moving normally and choosing not to run. So this doesn't improve their profiles. They don't get the ability to like improve their charge distances by going up a bracket.
Okay.
Legion Cataphracta Terminator squads, Legion Tartarus Terminator squads, and Just Terran Terminator squads may be chosen as non-compulsory troops choices.
Okay.
And any Legion Cataphracta Terminator squad, Legion Tartarus squad, or Just Terran Terminator squad selected as troops in detachment using this Rite of War gain the outflank special rule. Not bad.
No, that's pretty good. I can see that being useful.
Absolutely. So a detachment this Rite of War must be part of a traitor allegiance, boohoo, whatever. And a detachment this Rite of War may not include any ones with a heavy unit subtype unless they enter play from reserve or begin the battle embarked upon a model with transport subtype.
So this feels like a very different kind of right to the Black Breathing. And I think that your heavy units kind of coming in from reserves or being embarked upon transports is interesting. I assume that also means that like you can't have heavy support units starting on the board. Am I correct in saying that then?
Yeah.
So I think that this one perhaps takes some clever thinking about how exactly we do that, but leveraging the outflank seems to be the best way. Land raiders with Terminators coming in from the sides maybe might be an interesting way to go, with dreadnoughts fucking hairing it up the board. I think for me this is a bit of a shame that it doesn't change the characteristic, and I think that I don't think it would have been too bad, the +1 movement combined with the run to get your units up there quicker. But I think, I don't know. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's amazing. I would say on balance, it's probably one of the weaker Rites of War that I've seen when doing this kind of Legion review, actually, though.
Yeah, I think the second limitation about their heavy unit subtype with the 2.0 meta as it is currently, I think it's actually quite a heavy nerf, because it's the heavy support squads which are a bit boring, but to a certain degree are almost a necessity. But it also affects things like javelins. You can't start them on the board because they're heavy. It's a bit of a pain in the arse. I think if you just gave them the +1 movement, admittedly they're just ripping off white scars, but it would definitely increase the increase the potency of the of the Rite of War a fair bit. Outflank as well. It doesn't have to be the size of the board anymore. So I mean, you could deploy. You can stick the marker on your opponent's board edge,
right,
in the back of their deployment zone, but you do have to be careful about them going and standing on the marker, and then you can't bring them on. So that's something to watch out for. So like the rest of the Sons of Horus army, it's a bit of a finesse one. This one, I think. I've had a bit of success with deep striking one unit of Justarian via Abaddon, which we'll touch on in a second, and then outflanking a second unit. That can create a nice little sandwich. +1 move on dreads. That's great, but it's not worth taking the Rite of War for just that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'd say the Black Reaving is probably 6 or a 7 out of 10. I'd say this is probably a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Cool. That's a good.
I don't think that's unfair.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's have a look at the next bit, the Armory of the Sons of Horus. So I'll read through these. So we've got the Kasuran Power Axe, which I think is quite a cool and thematic weapon. Not a axe that existed in the last rule, so it was nice to see this. So it's strength user, AP3, melee, breaching 5 up, and a specialist weapon as well. So unless you've got a power fist in your other hand, you won't get +1 attack from holding this. The fact that it goes at initiative is really nice, and the fact that it's breaching 5 up is also really nice as well. Justarian just come with them, and any model with the Legion of Astartes Sons of Horus may exchange a power weapon for this axe. So this might be nice if you're thinking, well, I was going to put power swords on my veterans. Actually, you could just take this power axe as an alternative, which might be really, really cool. And then Banestrike Bolter. So a special shout out to Banestrike Bolter. I think that it's become so much better than what it was previously. And it almost makes you feel like the old sniper vets that we used to have. And the Sons of Horus, and I think the only other Legion that can take them are the Alpha Legion. So definitely worth upgrading your units that can take them with them. So any model with independent character in the Sons of Horus special rule may exchange a bolter for a Banestrike Bolter, or a combi bolter for a Banestrike combi bolter for 5 points. Additionally, all models in a Legion Seeker squad that is composed entirely of models with the Sons of Horus special rule may exchange their Kraken bolters for Banestrike bolters for no additional points cost, or all models in the Legion Veteran squad composed entirely of models with the Sons of Horus rule may exchange them for 2 points per model. So definitely worth.
It's nice that as well they include the combi bolter, because with a lot of the other, like with the shrapnel rounds and the whatever the ether fire one, the 1,000 Suns one, it's just for normal regular bolters. So Terminators lose it weirdly.
Yeah, so the Banestrike Bolter kind of the combi bolter and the bolter is essentially the same. It's just got twin links is the difference. So it's range 18, it's strength 5, which is fantastic. Like wounding on 3s is brilliant. AP4, rapid fire, and breaching 6 up, and it's that breaching 6 up which makes it super duper spicy. Now I don't think we'll kind of talk about veterans too much in like going forward, but the one thing I would say about veterans is that veterans can take drop pods, and I think that combined with some of the synergies of the Sons of Horus, I think is really, really nice. And I think that veterans in those drop pods combined with Banestrike bolters would be a great addition to any
especially with a combi bolter. Now you can fire combi weapon. Yeah, you can fire both parts. But yeah, I think obviously we did a deep dive on veterans on the Patreon, which was really interesting actually. There's a lot of stuff you can do with veterans, so go and check that out.
Cool. Let's have a look at the next part. Right. So
you do this one. I think you need to go through this one because you've got right hard on for this.
Yeah. So so perhaps we could do a whole show about this really, but the Allies Matrix has opened up so many different options to players because it has expanded. You've got 1 HQ, 4 troops choices, 2 elites, 1 fast attack and 1 heavy, right? And I think that allows you to unlock so many combinations that you weren't previously able to unlock. I think also what they thought about more carefully in this edition is the way that allies synergizes with different forces, different armies. So they've unlocked, for example, in the Alpha Legion list, you've got the Morbius configuration, which is a warlord trait, which leverages some rules with the allies matrix, which is really nice. And then they've got this particular Legion console, which is used within an allies detachment of Sons of Horus, right? So this is not your main detachment. This has got to be used within the allies matrix. And I think it's really, I just think it's cool more than anything else, right? Yeah. So you can take it as a Legion Centurion, or it can be a Terminator clad Centurion if you want to. It's a plus 25 additional points, and they get War Master's Eye special rule. So if a Dark Emissary is selected as a compulsory HQ choice in an allied detachment that is part of an army with a traitor allegiance, then all models in the allied detachment with the Legionaries Astartes Sons of Horus special rule gain the Stubborn special rule, which is absolutely brilliant. And then a Dark Emissary gains a Staff of Dark Authority and no additional points cost. And a Dark Emissary, they can't take a jump pack or a jet bike. And the Staff of Dark Authority gives this. So all models with the traitor allegiance within 6 inches of a model with the Staff of Dark Authority, including that model, increases their leadership to 10 when taking a morale check or pinning test, which is absolutely fantastic. And the Staff of Dark Authority may also be used as a weapon with the following profile. So it's +1 strength, AP3, melee, unwieldy, and murderous strike as well. So it's kind of like a not quite as good Paragon Blade, really. Now this can be taken in a normal detachment, but you lose War Master's Eye because it's not taken in the allied detachment.
If you didn't, you'd have it like this guy would be an auto include.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely brilliant. But you can load out your Sons of Horus allied detachment to be like the main part of your force, right, in terms of points, and then have a very, very small primary detachment. I think it's just really cool, and I'd be interested to see if anybody watching this thinks that they could synergize this well with particular units or particular legions as well. But I think it's cool, and I think it's great for some modeling, kind of modeling conversion work as well. Any other thoughts from you guys about it? No, cool. Okay.
No, I've not run this guy because normally if I'm using the Sons of Horus, they're the primary detachment. But just to echo what you said, I think particularly with the staff, I think there's a great modelling opportunity. This guy would be pretty cool to base.
He's based on Malachurst, isn't
he? Yeah.
Yes, you've got Malachurst, and the Malachurst replacement from the Siege of Terror books has slipped my mind. He'd be really cool to base a model off of using these rules as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Let's have a look at the next one. Right, we're getting into the units now. So the man himself, the whole shebang is named after this guy. So let's have a look at his rules, because he is the heftiest in terms of points cost.
As he should be.
Points.
As he fucking should be.
100 points for this guy. Now, Giles, you've actually used him, so I feel like it's appropriate that you take us through his rules. We'll go through just Horus, and then we'll talk about his ascended version, and then John can take us through his ascended version afterwards.
Okay, sounds good to me. So I've only used Horus 2 or 3 times. I think Primarchs in this edition are probably something you'd agree with your opponent beforehand. But if your opponent's taking a Primarch, Horus is probably going to kick him in the dick. He's an absolute beat stick. You certainly pay the points for it, but the changes to Primarchs in this edition are so good. So he comes with the Serpent Scales. So that gives you a 2-up and a 2-up armor save and a 3-up invul. War Master's Talon, that's pretty tasty. So you've got 2 weapons choices for that. You can shoot it and you can slash with it. So if you're fighting, it's AP2, melee, shred, and deflagrate, which is huge. You're going into a bunch of mooks, you can just kill them. Initiative 6, deflagrate the rest of them. See you later. Rob, I've done that to you, and you didn't look like you enjoyed it. The shooting option, it's okay. Strength 5, AP3, Assault 3, Twin Linked. Not that you probably need it with BS6, but it's there. It's handy to have. World Breaker, in my opinion, the most iconic weapon in the entire Heresy. Strength 10, AP2, that's a pretty tasty place to start. Obviously, it's a melee weapon. Master crafted, brutal 2, sunder, and unwieldy. So
I didn't realise it was brutal too. Oh, right.
Yeah. So that combined with the strength 10 is just, oh mama.
That's gonna fuck up some custodies, isn't it? That's gonna fuck it in them.
Sure. It's really good and great for, you're probably taking World Breaker when you go into against another Primarch to make the use to that brutal 2.
Yeah.
For his Warlord trait, Sire of the Sons of Horus, all models with the infantry unit type in the same army, so not just detachment, and regardless of faction, gain +1 leadership and stubborn. So
oh my god, such a boss multiplier, isn't it?
But it gets better, boys. So Master of Weapons is another rule that Horus has. You can never be hit in close combat on better than a 4+, regardless of weapon skill. And you can also choose to split his attacks between the War Master's Talon and World Breaker. So you can plonk them out. And with the Primarch changes, where you get precision hit plus, you can conk a few guys with the brutal 2, and you can slice through a few guys with the War Master's Talon. So if you're going up against a unit of another Primarch, for example, you might want to use the deflag rate on some mooks and then stick a couple of brutal 2 hits on another big target. So it's really good options to have. I think the thing that also is really good Horus has is Master of War. So once per battle, at the start of any turn where Horus Lupercal's controlling player is the reactive player, you can activate this special rule. I'd recommend doing it on turn 2 typically, because that's when you tend to get that's when stuff starts to start happening. And then for the duration of the turn in which you activate that special rule, the reaction allotment of the army that includes Horus is increased by +1 in every phase. So
six.
Yeah, that is very, very tasty.
That's nuts.
Zero joke.
Yeah, exactly. So he's an absolute demon. Well, I probably shouldn't say that.
He's a what, Giles? He's a demon.
Come to that in a minute.
But yeah, he's really good. The Primarch changes to the Primarch unit subtype make him even better. So you're always consolidating that initiative 6. So you're getting a free move after every turn you wipe something, which you're probably going to be doing most turns of this guy. He's off the train. He's got deep strike preternaturally as well. So although what was I going to say? So Justarin can be taken as a retinue. But with the new FAQ changes, you aren't doing that because they count as part of his points cost in the Lord of War slot.
Well, so do you not then take Abaddon and you make the Justarin Abaddon's retinue?
So this is what I did to Rob. So you take Abaddon. I mean, this is going to cost you 1,200 points to do this. There is an option: Abaddon plus retinue plus Horus. You deep strike in, probably smash the biggest target as a trio, and then Horus can wander off and go and start soloing things if the situation is right on the battlefield. Having as well 2 people in that unit with either battle hardened in Abaddon or being Eternal Warrior because you're a Primarch in Horus means you can just eat any incoming las cannon shots, knock a couple of wounds off of each, and then get the squad at almost full strength into multiple targets. So the guy's an absolute genius. He's why we're all here. Why wouldn't you love him?
So there's 2 things I want to kind of just add to that very, very good overview, Giles, that you gave us there. So the first thing is that he obviously benefits from the Sons of Horus Legion rule. So weapons going against him are -1 strength, which I think is just is crazy. But the second thing is that if you didn't want to do your Giles's kind of like mad combination of Abaddon and Horus plus Justarin, the other alternative you could use if you want to do Horus and Justarin is of course using the Black Reaving, right? So the Black Reaving unlocks Deep Strike for Justarin because they don't get it natively; they don't just come with it. So you could then attach Horus, who's got Deep Strike, with the Justarin. Now, you wouldn't unlock the banner, so it wouldn't be a scoring unit, But if you didn't want to buy a bad and you wanted a cheaper HQ alternative, that would be the way to do it through the Black Reaving. So just something to consider there, because I think the fact was, I mean, I heard different things. Some people were like, oh, it should have always been played that way, but it certainly took me by surprise. And I think that the command squad upgrades for Primarchs now are just basically obsolete. You're not going to.
Well, I had a little bit of salt thrown around because I was planning on taking Perturabo and 6 Iron Circles.
A really good example.
Year, which obviously now won't be happening because it's not a 5,000 point event. So they'll be staying at. Bit of a shame. Cool. All right, let's have a look at Horus Ascended. And John, will you take us through this? So first of all, shout out to the model, because it's absolutely incredible. And really has shown how far 3D sculpting has come, because this is just stunning. But you can tell it's 3D sculpted, but I cannot wait to get my hands on it. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. Oh my God.
It's so good, so good. And it looks humongous as well. It looks significantly bigger than the first iteration of Horus that we had.
What an absolute champ. He's going to be 120 quid, do we reckon?
I reckon so, yeah. Something along those lines. Depending on size.
Doesn't matter. Worth every penny.
Yep. So good.
Cool. So, Horus Ascended. So, as you're all aware, Horus gets he was quite good at the beginning, and then he gets a bit sad, and then he gets really fucking good, right? So that's the kind of trajectory of Horus. So if Horus Ascended upgrade is selected, then the Horus Ascended profile is used to determine Primarch's characteristics. So if we go back a couple, we can see that he goes to Strength 8, Toughness 8, 8 wounds. What? Strength 8, Toughness 8, Toughness 8. 8 wounds.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Fuck my mouth. Right. Okay. Imagine in addition,
5s by a Thunderhammer.
Yeah. Wound on 5s by a Thunderhammer.
Least great, spicy.
Yeah. A lot of people just cannot hit him, cannot hurt him. Unbelievable. So, but not only that, it's worth bearing in mind. I think it's 400 points to upgrade into Horus Ascended. So 1,000 points. So, however, he also gains the following special rules: Feel No Pain 4+. So you got 2 up, 3 up, 4 up, all the numbers, all in a line. There you go. Right. Give him Shrouded, then he can get 5 up as well. He then also has the following special rules: Rage 3, mental.
Yep.
The Power of Chaos Eternal, Dark Fate, and the Spreading Corruption. So a Dark Fate, so the first time in any battle that Horus Ascended loses his last wound or is otherwise removed from play as a casualty, the mod is instead placed into reserves with a single wound remaining. Any unit Horus Ascended was part of remains in play, even a retinue or any unit that would normally not allow the removal of a model from the unit. After being placed in reserves due to the special rule, Horus Ascended may choose to re-enter play with the controlling player making reserves rolls for the model as per normal. So again, if you're in like a Black Reaving, you'll have your Master of Signals there, so you can re-roll that. Absolute champ. If the Slay the Warlord objective or any other objective that requires the enemy warlord to be removed as a casualty to score victory points in effect, then it is still triggered when Horus Ascended is moved into reserves due to special rule, and may be triggered a second time if Horus Ascended returns to play and is removed as a casualty again. He comes back on 1 wound. Did I read that right? It was 1 wound, wasn't it?
Yeah, single wound remaining.
Yeah, cool. Wonderful. The Power of Chaos Eternal. Once per battle at the start of any assault phase, whether Horus Ascended's controlling player is the active or reactive player, Horus Ascended's controlling player may choose to activate the Power of Chaos Eternal. Once activated, Horus Ascended increases strength and toughness characteristics to 10.
Mental.
Oh, shit.
Mental.
And ignores all the effects of the unwieldy special rule on attacks made with Worldbreaker, guys.
Oh my God.
Once
that's for the Emperor, right? That's where he gets it out for the Emperor. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. What absolutely. Once this all phase is ended, all combats being fought have been resolved, and the effects of the Power of Chaos Eternal have ended. Horus Ascended automatically suffer the powers of the warp but any wounds caused must be allocated to friendly models in the same unit as Horus Ascended.
Interesting.
Not too shabby. And the last one, the spreading corruption. So all models in a unit made up entirely of models with the infantry, cavalry, or dreadnought unit types in the same detachment as Horus Ascended may be given the corrupted unit subtype at a cost of 25 points per unit. If this upgrade is selected for a unit, then all models in the unit must gain the corrupted subtype. Nay bad. Models that are attached to units such as apothecaries or tech marines must be upgraded separately. So apothecaries, attached with tech marine covenants and other units which are bought as a single force organization slot and then separated, divided, or attached to other units, including units bought using the retinue special rule or any variant of that rule which allowed the unit to be counted as part of the same organization slot as the leader model. The upgrade is bought once for the entire set of models before they're separated and must be applied to all models chosen as part of that force organization slot. So you pay once and all your 3 apothecaries get it. So, Rob, do you want to read what corrupted does?
Yeah, I guess so. Why don't you look at the next one and then I'll tell you what corrupted.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
The next one will be old cripple face himself.
What a beautiful model, though. I love this guy.
Wonderful model, really, really good. I think he's
face as well for other conversions.
Oh yeah, but I also think as well he strikes me as one of the first models in the kind of the sort of the new scale. I remember he's the first model that I remember people being like, "Oh my god, it's fucking massive."
Yeah, I remember seeing lots of comparisons that have been scaled from like the base rim, and thinking this guy's gonna be huge, but
this guy's going to be huge.
He's a chonk in the books anyway, so
yeah,
he is a bit of a chonk. So just love him.
Ugh. Giles, what do you make of Malaga? Did you run him in 1.0?
So I planned lots of lists with him, but never got round to painting one because, well, we didn't have the model and the
that long, did we?
The Sons of Horus command unit, which I think was probably originally intended to be Malachurst, while absolutely beautiful, are now the size of small children.
I'm
making a new one.
I've got some. I don't think I'll ever see play.
Yeah, this he's been a bit broken in body in the transformation from 1.0 to 2.0, as we mentioned earlier, as well. But there we go.
Yes, so he's kind of not quite Centurion level stats in so much that he's got Legion 10, but he's only got 2 wounds. So he's very, very steadfast up until the point where he gets hit a couple of times and then he dies. Yeah.
Should we go through some of his other things? So the benefits of Malagas the Twisted is of course that he has the Legion standard. So if you don't want to buy a command squad, this guy might be the way to go about it. So he's got the Warlord trait that he comes with is Bearer of the Eye. All models in a unit joined by Malagas gain the line subtype and count as a scoring unit. When Malagas twists or any unit he is drawing controls an objective, that control may not be cancelled or contested by any denial units, which is absolutely brilliant. He also gains an additional reaction during the shooting phase. I kind of think that this would actually be good as a backfield heavy support unit, right? This would be like you put him at the back, and I think with a squad of las cannons or Volkites or something like that, and I think that would be pretty cool.
I think as well, he's one of the few characters which got adamantium will.
Yeah.
I think that often gets overlooked. Adamantium will 4+, so I think that's like that will go overlooked by many. But it's really fucking Adamantium will is super sought after in this edition. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and then he also may not run, and he may not make sweeping advances. So it's an interesting one, the Bearer of the Eye rule, because you kind of get that from the Legion standard anyway, because of the fact that kind of unlocks the line. But the kind of the thing about it is that it can't be contested. So only an enemy scoring unit can contest an objective.
ever going to be your warlord, though?
This is the problem, right? I think that there is always going to be a better alternative. I think if you wanted a cheap warlord, like, he might be quite a good option instead of a Delegatus, because he unlocks rights of war because he's a master of the Legion. So if you were considering a Delegatus, that, you know, he might be an alternative to that. But I think it's the Legion standard that you're really paying for here. But as I say, I think a backline Las Cannon Volkite heavy support squad of some type with him attached to it, I think would.
Yeah, but I think there's better. Again, I think there's better ways of getting a Legion standard. I think we'll come on to in a minute. To be honest with you, I think he's been done the dirty a little bit on this edition. I think he's had a lot of his utility taken away by the fact that he's just not going to ever be the warlord. I think if the Bearer of the Eye were not a warlord trait and were a special rule attached to his Legion standard or to him specifically, I think he'd see more play. But I think he's a bit rubbish now. Actually, I'm going to say it.
Okay. Well, before we move on to the next one, I should tell you what the corrupted unit subtype does. So it does a range of things. So all models with the corrupted unit subtype gain the Fear 1 special rule. Any hits inflicted on a model with a corrupted unit subtype by a weapon with a Force or Psychic special rule gains the instant death special rule.
Not
any unit composed entirely of models with a corrupted unit subtype is immune to the effects of fear. And automatically passes regroup tests and cannot choose to fail a morale check due to our weapons are useless. When a unit composed entirely of these model with corrupted fails a morale check, it does not fall back as per the standard Legion rules, but instead suffers D3 automatic wounds with no save or damage mitigation. And no model that does not also have the corrupted unit subtype or demon unit type may join a unit that includes one or more models with a corrupted unit subtype as well.
So what you're saying is you can do things such as we talked about Night Lords earlier. So if you've got Reavers and or Just Aaron that are deep striking in that are corrupted, they're going to be +1, which is
really nice. Really nice.
Anyway, back to Malagurst. I don't think he's that good personally. I think that is a massive shame.
Yeah, it's a great model, but I think the banner could be used well. But yes, we will come to other banners.
Why would you not take Harry?
Yeah, well, let's have a look at the next one and go from there.
The next one is a man who does not have a good model.
Yeah, it's a little bit dated. This model now.
This is, I think, should be right at the top of the list for candidates of heroes of the heresy that desperately need a model, right?
Yeah, this guy in Sigismund needs some new sculpts like no tomorrow.
Yeah, I agreed with that.
But his rules, however, have got quite the buff.
Oh yes, this guy.
Giles,
I'm a big fanboy of Abaddon. I have been for a very long time.
Well, why don't you take us through him then? Come on then.
He used to be in 1.0. He was a chud on the table. You were taking him for style points. Let's be honest. These days, though, he is the War Master's chosen, represented correctly.
Yeah.
He was captain.
I'm right in thinking he had a power sword and a power fist.
It was something shit like that. Like, I just stare at his rules and think, why aren't you better? But now, this guy, he's the hero we all deserve. I'll take you through the notable stats here. Weapon skill 7, bash. That's pretty fucking tasty. Burst 5, he's got a Bane Strike Combi Bolter. That's no bad thing. Otherwise, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 4. So that's very nice. Initiative 5, attacks 5. So that's again very tasty. Leadership 10, but he's fearless. Who cares? And then 2+ save, and he's wearing Cataphracti. So he's got that 4-up invul. Master of the Legion, obviously. He's captain of the first company. Relentless, obviously. Battle hardened 1. That's one of the first huge rules he's got. So for the purpose of instant death, he's effectively toughness 5, which is so good in the words.
So there's new Typhon templates get dropped on his noggin.
Sorry.
Up until all those new Typhon templates get dropped on his noggin.
Oh yes, that would be an issue. But he's heavy, so he can reroll his saves. Fearless, which is fantastic. You can't use Shrouded, but as we'll come on to that in a second, probably not needed. Has Deep Strike, which ties into his favourite boy band, the Justarian, really nicely, which we'll cover in a second. Precision Strike 4+, which is not to be sniffed at. Which with that many attacks and weapon skill 7, Jeez. Traitor only, obviously. His Warlord trait, the Vengeful Spirit. This is so good. Really enjoy this. So Abaddon and any unit he joins gain the Feel No Pain 4+ special rule during the movement and shooting phases only. So you won't get it for Overwatch, but when those pesky fools try and intercept you, 4 up. And any turn in which they come in as part of the Deep Strike Assault. In addition, an army with Abaddon as the Warlord get an extra reaction in the movement phase. One which John's a fan of. I'm less so, but with a 4 up, Feel No Pain, who cares? His weapons. So he's got a Paragon Blade, very tasty. Bane Strike Combi Bolter, like I mentioned, comes with a grenade harness, so that saves you 5 points or 10 points to your Justarian squad. And his Chthonian Power Claw. This is pretty hectic. Would strongly recommend largely using this. So it's a strength ×2, AP 2, melee, unwieldy, specialist weapon. So Paragon Blades, correct me if I'm wrong, believe they're specialist weapons as well.
Yeah, okay. Shit.
6 attacks,
Right.
plus 7 for charging. It's got Shred. It's basically a Shred Power Fist, and it's also mastercrafted. So
he's also getting 8 attacks on the charge in a Black Reaving arm. He's also getting Rage.
Yeah,
too.
Trigger and Rage. Jeez. So you're mastercrafted, your weapon skill 7, so you're probably hitting. And then on top of that, precision strikes 4+ as well. So if you're going with the Paragon Blade, you can just say goodbye, boom, 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 see off the sergeant. Maybe there's another Power Fist in the squad. See you later. Vexilla, not interested.
Oh, the guy's an absolute fucking blender.
He really is. And the battle hardened, I'm just going to assume you're taking a squad of Justarian. So when you start getting shot by las cannons, I'll just take this on my 4 up invul. Just a wound on Abaddon. And if it's the first turn he's deep struck and it's the movement or assault phase, I'll just take a Feel No Pain as well. Why not?
Imagine not taking Justarian.
Exactly. So he buffed those 2 units buff each other so nicely. Also, with the Legion trait and being toughness 5 for purpose of instant death, you can very comfortably just say, nah, I'm going to use my Power Claw. I'm going to go at initiative step 1, and I'm going to use a Shred mastercrafted Power Fist. So it's like the Power Claw. It's so good. It's so good.
What a boy! Finally.
More to say about this. That was just a very excitable splurge of thoughts, but the guy's an absolute hero. I love him.
The hero we needed. Excellent. Thank you, Giles, for that. A really good comprehensive overview and definitely a model to take with some deep striking Justarian. We will get to the Justarian in a bit because that will kind of make more sense with his and Horus's rules. So we've got a really iconic model here that is kind of goes alongside Abaddon, which is Garviel Loken, a hero from the first 3 books, and spoiler alert, subsequently appears in some later books as well. Let's have a look at his rules if you're taking a loyalist only Sons of Horus. So John, why don't you take us through this one for us?
Oh, okay. So he is 175 points. He has essentially Praetor stat line. So he's weapon skill 6, BS 6, strength on top is 4, only 3 wounds because obviously he's just in Artificer armor. Initiative 5 attacks, however. Legion 10, 2 up save. Again, he's got Paragon Blade, which I think he literally had like a special chainsaw last time around.
No, it was just like a
In fact, I think it was a shredding chainsaw. If memory.
No, he had a Paragon Blade before. He had a 3 up save though. Yeah, he had a Paragon Blade before, but he had a 3 up save before.
Fine, I've got crack grenades. Don't worry about it. So his Legion special rules. So he's got Master of Legion, so he unlocks Warlord traits, super deeper. Born Survivor, he's loyalist only, and his Warlord trait is the Wolf of Luna. So the Wolf of Luna, a Warlord with this trait may only join a unit's composed entirely models with.
This is the same as the one before, right?
It is.
Yeah,
you're right. It is the same as the one before. Well,
yeah.
So it's me reading then. Born Survivor. In fact, he's got both of the other Warlord traits. He's got the same as the Armor of Pride as well, hasn't he?
Correct.
Easy peasy. Right, he's quite cool. If you're going to take a Lunar Wolves army or like loyalist Sons of Horus Army defense guy. He's fucking killed. Like you'll get admiration from everyone that you play against if you're playing with Garfield Loken. I took him to a. In fact, I played Giles at this Siege of Terror themed event with Garfield Loken as a knight errant, and he was total dog shit. But there you go. Such is life. Right.
Awesome.
I forgot this guy even existed until I looked at the presentation before we started recording, by the way. So, I'm not in a position to talk about time.
So moving into some of the legacy characters now. So this never got a model, but he did get rules. Tibalt Mar got rules in book.
Does this mean we'll be getting a model if he has rules in the new edition? Or is
it's in the legacies?
In the legacies, yeah.
Oh,
I don't think we'll ever see a model for this, unfortunately. But despite that, he was a cool character. So if you're not sure who Tibalt Mar was, he was part of a duo called the Either and the Or. The Or got killed in the second book, and Tibalt Mar kind of later on in the Heresy was kind of searched out and hunted down Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and Salamanders, who were kind of waging their guerrilla campaign against the forces as they were heading towards Terra.
It's worth saying as well, when we talk about models, the Sons of Horus have got one of the better Artificer Armor Praetor models, I think. So it would make quite a cool base for the.
I definitely think so. Yeah, definitely. But he's a very, very cool character within the story. But he does, again, spoiler alert, come to a sticky end. Again, he's got kind of Praetor. Well, almost Praetor level stats. He's 175 points, but he's got weapon skill 5. He's 3 wounds. He has got leadership 10 and a 2-up save, but only 3 attacks. He comes with a rather tasty Bane Strike Bolter. He's got the Culling Blade and an Iron Halo as well. He's got Relentless, which is an interesting rule for him to come with, but I think all Centurions just come with that as standard now, and he's Traitor only. And then he comes with the Armor of Pride Warlord trait that we did right at the start. So I think that he can come back to life, right? Is that what the Armor of Pride?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm saying as well quickly with the Culling Blade that it's not a specialist weapon, so he will get native 4 attacks for having 2.
Oh, that's good. Okay, cool. So it's Strength 5, Melee, Breaching 5 up, Murder Strike 5 up, which I think is great. Duelist Edge +1 and Mastercrafted. So you lose the AP2 from a Paragon Blade. But what you do is gain Breaching 5 up, and then that is obviously, of course, Murder Strike 5 up. So quite useful against.
That's cool. I like fishing for numbers. I think that's good.
Yeah. I think he's a really cool model. Probably not the best when compared against Abaddon, but I just like him. I think he's cool and adds great flavour to your Sons of Horus army.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, because Loken is also 175 points. I think I don't think there's much of a comparison between the two, but. It's just, I'd certainly rather have Tibalt Mar than not. So no complaints from me.
Cool. Let's have a look at the next one.
Can I do this one? Because I really like these.
This is great. Yeah,
these are from the exemplary battles. Now, I think this was a 1.0 exemplary battle, correct?
No, this is a 2.0.
Oh, even better then. So I think these guys are really cool. They're odd in that they sit in the HQ slot, which I think is. Well, we'll talk about this when we talk about lists later on, I think. But bit of a strange one, but I think it's very, very cool. So essentially, they are all, for want of a better term, they're all characters. So they're all chosen warriors. They're all essentially Reaver sergeants in a big group. But they are veteran stats. So weapon skill 5, BS4, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wound, initiative 4, 2 attacks with 3-up save. But the unit composition is the fact you get standard bearer included. So they are a scoring unit as long as the standard bearer is still alive. So you get a Legion standard. So you get a Legion standard bubble. You get a ability to score, but you get some really, really cool war gear options as well. Not only just baked in war gear. So they've got Bane Strike Bolters as per normal. We've talked about how cool they are. We've got Legion standard in there. We've got bolt pistols, chainswords. And also come with a boarding shield as well. So they're not going to be able to do any like running or running people down, but at the same time, they're going to be really hard to get off of an objective, given they've got 2 wounds and they've got a boarding shield, they've got standard in there, so they're going to be legit 10. But also, if we look at the war gear options, you can give them all artificer armor for 5 points.
Bargain.
So they're going to be really survivable. If you want someone just to kind of stand on the top of an objective, plonk the standard into the ground and just stand there remorselessly, not dying, then yeah, then away you go. They've got some really nice war gear options as well. So you can give them chain axes for 2 points, which is really, really cool. You can give them a power weapon for 10 points each. So you obviously give them the Kassoran power axe that we talked earlier with the AP3 strength 5 breaching that strikes initiative. And you can give a power pistol. So this is any model, so you can have a real mixture in there as well. So Chieftain Retinue rule: a Chieftain squad in the detachment includes at least 1 model with both the Master of the Legion and Legion started Sons of Horus special rule. May be set as a Retinue squad instead of an HQ choice. Really, really useful. The model with both the Master of the Legion and Legion as a started Sons of Horus special rule is referred to as the Retinue squad's leader for the purposes of this special rule. If the detachment includes more than 1 model with both the Martial Legion and Legion is started Sons of Horus special rule, the controlling player selects one of the unit's leader. A Chieftain squad selection of retinue does not take up a force org slot and is considered part of the same unit as the model selected as its leader. And a Chieftain squad selected as a retinue squad must be deployed with the model selected as its leader deployed as part of the unit, and the leader may not voluntarily leave the retinue squad. And then lastly, Kingslayers. When any model with this special rule are used to make melee attacks against enemy units, that includes any model with the independent character special rule or the Primarch unit type, all fail to hit rolls of 1 may be re-rolled, given their weapon skill 5. Very handy. When a model with this special rule is engaged in a challenge is used to make melee attacks against a model with the independent character special rule or the Primarch unit type, all fail to hit rolls may be re-rolled. And given that they're chosen warriors, you can cycle them all through. They can all have a challenge every turn. Fucking go crazy. I think these guys are absolutely fucking brilliant. I am
no joke. No joke. I think that this is really good. The fact that it can be taken as a HQ choice means that you can just take Horus as your Primarch, and then this can fill your compulsory HQ choice, which I think is really nice.
These are wicked. I love these guys. I think it's a great unit.
Giles, can't take no dedicated transport options though, so you'd need to buy a transport for option if you did want to.
Yeah, very flavourful. The exemplary battle that the unit is plucked from as well, I think is a really cool bit of the lore as well. So I'd strongly recommend having a browse through that. And the mission in that exemplary battle looks quite fun as well. So something else to think about.
Oh, awesome. Right.
Main event, right? The main event.
Main event. This is it. This is if you're facing Sons of Horus, you're going to face these guys. Great models that stood the test of time, considering they're some of the first models that came out. And yeah, let's take a look at them.
They are the best of the best of the best of the first company of the best Legion.
Absolutely. So their rules.
Except there are better Terminators out.
yeah. So
plus cars exist.
Yes, just their Terminator squad. They come in at 275 points base. The most notable things about them is that they are weapon skill 5. They're 2 wounds apiece, but they have got 3 attacks base, which is really nice. They're, of course, leadership 9 with a 2-up save. They've got a 4-up invuln, and they come with Bane Strike bolters and Kassoran power axes just built in. They also have the only real kind of noticeable thing about them is that they've got Furious Charge 1, which is fantastic. They're chosen warriors, so they will be accepting some challenges, and they've also got stubborn as well. Now, they can, in terms of their dedicated transport, take a Proteus or a Legion Dreadclaw drop pod, and I think it's unlikely that you will be taking that. So if you want to run them in a larger squad as in a Spartan, you will need to buy that Spartan separately. But a Land Ranger Proteus might be a good option for them. Now, the Justarian retinue is really critical, I think, within the Sons of Horus, army. So basically, the long and the short of it, we've read this rule 1,000 times. They can be taken as a command squad, and they can be given a banner for 15 points, which means that the unit gets line. And if the character they're attached to has deep strike, they also gain deep strike as well. So the two most pertinent characters that
or have taken in a Black Reaving, right?
Or taking in Black Reaving. The two most pertinent characters that applies to is Abaddon and Horus. Now, because of the most recent fact, that means that you're going to have to play either fucking massive games if you want to take it with Horus, or you're going to run Abaddon and just take it as a command squad with Abaddon and then attach Horus with them, as Giles was saying. So you're taking a very, very expensive kind of Death Star that is deep striking. So you're not needing to worry about that. That's great, right? So they can accept challenges, they're scoring, they are stubborn, they'll be with a fearless unit as well. So we don't need to worry about the fact that they are stubborn, because they'll be either with Horus and Abaddon or just Abaddon, right? So that, I think, is the putting alongside Abaddon or Horus is probably the best bet, but really you are looking to put them alongside Abaddon and getting them deep strike.
So I think as well, these are, when we talk about, I think this is the first point we want to start talking about synergizing, because I genuinely think these guys are a unit that they don't need a character to be really effective.
Yeah,
I think that they get turned, when you put a character in there, they get turned up to 11. But I think they start at a 10. So the fact you can take 7 additional, so you can have a unit of 12, really nice. But then look at their war gear options. So they can take a multi-melter.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So 2 multi-melters in with 10. They can take combi weapons if you wanted them to, but look at their close combat weapons. You can take power fist, power weapons, lightning claw, chain fist, and thunder hammers. But you can also, for 5 points, you can take 2 lightning claws.
Yeah.
Now, Giles and I have had this discussion because this is when you start getting into the wombo combos, right? So you bang these in a Black Reaving list. You give at least one guy in the unit 2 lightning claws for 5 points, tiny tax, right? So he's gaining 3 attack space, 2 for having 2 lightning claws, 2 for furious charge, for rage in Black Reaving, and he gets furious charge on the charge as well. So he's got 7 attacks. His weapon skill 5. He's at an additional +1 strength, and he's got shred on his lightning claws. One
Mental.
guy can blend an entire tactical squad on his own.
Yeah. These guys are so good. Like the double lightning claws is a great option. Like John said, I personally like to go with 1 or 2 guys in a squad with those, depending how big the squad is. I think you're probably giving most of the squad thunder hammers. There's few units that these guys can't go up against and just smush in one turn, with the combination of thunder hammers for brutal 2 and combined with the Legion trait. So they're really good. They can do a bit of shooting as well. Like we said, multi-melters are great. They can take combi weapons, and the BS5 is pretty tasty there. Even Bane Strike bolters, like we've been saying all episodes, the Rending 6 on there, you're going to get a few of them across the squad. So that's great. You can take a grenade harness, which if you're taking multiple guys of lightning claws is definitely something to consider. If they're with Abaddon, remember he has one already. I would always take these guys as a command squad if I can, just to give them that line. I think that's so handy. Taking
making them scoring is just unreal, man.
Yeah, like good luck getting these guys off an objective in combat, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and making them line just it's amazing. The models are amazing. They're amazing, and I love their lore. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a fanboy for any 16th Legion that happen to be wearing the black of the first company. But they're just really great. You can try and keep their points down by going with like 1 lightning claw and power weapons, but personally I don't really see the point. I think with these guys, you're taking the spear tip to the max, you're cranking it up to 15 and you're going head over biscuit. So my perfect choice will always be deep strike these guys. They're tough enough to take a bit of intercept, particularly if you're combining them with Abaddon and his 4-up feel no pain during the movement phase. Bit of a shame you can't take a Spartan as dedicated transport. That seems to have always been the case with these guys. I'm not really sure why. I don't know if it's to encourage the deep striking side of things, but they're
I think it's definitely that. I think it's trying to encourage the spear tip kind of like play.
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah, when you read about them in the rules, they're always teleporting here, there, and everywhere, aren't they?
Oh, of course. And then one other thing to think about as well, if you're playing in a vehicle heavy meta, you may wish to consider a chain fist as well. There's generally a little bit less armor around these days, but armor is so much easier to kill in this edition because it can't react. So probably my typical loadout is a squad of 6. I've probably got 1 chain fist, 1 pair of lightning claws, and 4 thunder hammers. Sometimes I'll go 3 thunder hammers, 2 guys with double lightning claws. But with those kind of loadouts, you can go into anything. If you, again, vehicle heavy meta, you've got the Furious Charge, so you're getting that +1 strength. So in that case, you may not even need the chain fist, depending what you're going up against. They do struggle a little bit against AV14 if you've not got the chain fist, but like I said, any heavy infantry, they'll go in and they'll probably blend them. The only units I've struggled against are weapon skill 6 Varigear. They're a pain in the arse. Huffskulls are a pain in the arse.
Will the thunder hammers not be strength 10 on the charge with Furious Charge?
No, you add the multiplier afterwards.
Yeah, strength 9.
Yeah, and fire drakes, in the unlikely chance you encounter some salamanders, they can be a bit of a pain, but you'll still eventually smush them. And one thing of this is, because they're so hardy, it's very rare you're going to get killed in the first round of combat. So if another enemy unit lumps in to try and finish the job off, happy days, you're taking the strength off of all of their attacks again, because they'll proc the Legion trait. So these guys are a unit that really synergizes with the rest of the list. And I think you'd be a fool to leave home without a squad of these guys as a Sons of Horus player.
Great assessment, brilliant assessment. Thank you, Giles, for that. Let's have a look at the next unit.
Style points.
So Reavers. So the Reavers are a really interesting unit. I think for me personally, I think you need to really load up on them. And I think you need to try and take as many as possible. I could definitely see you taking a squad of 20 in a Spartan, right? I could that is for me a kind of a cool option. I've seen Giles run 15 across the board before, which with a telepathy librarian, which I think is a really good option as well. In terms of their stats, they're pretty similar to veterans, just overall. They're obviously movement 7. They've got weapon skill 5, leadership 8, and they've come base with a 3-up save, but they do have 2 attacks base, and the Reaver Chieftain has 3 attacks base. They come with a chain axe, which I think is pretty awesome. So it's +1 strength and then shred along with that. And then their special rules are Chosen Warriors, which is really fantastic. Counter attack 1, which is great even if they get charged, and then precision shot 6 up and precision strike 6 up as well. They can take a rhino if it's 10 dudes, but I think you'd be making an error if you're taking a rhino because you really want them to start assaulting. Or they can take a Dreadclaw drop pod. Again, that doesn't
a worse option than rhino.
Yeah, it's not good. So you might just have to bite the bullet and then buy some Proteus or Spartans within your slots to be able to unlock these.
The guy who I see running 60 of these in 3 Spartans is a hero.
Absolute hero. Yeah, that's amazing. Jesus Christ, that's absolutely nutty.
You can't fit him in. That's the problem, because you can't get the 3 heavy sports slots.
They're just so expensive as well.
But you don't need to take the Rite of War, right? You could just take these as...
Yeah, but come on now. Come on now.
Okay, two squads,
about exactly about having counter attack as well, because obviously the benefit from the Legion trait will proc even if you are charged. So the fact is like,
and again, that's that synergy that you were discussing earlier, isn't it? Yeah. Cool.
And again, there's some really cool options in terms of power, in terms of like war gear as well. So like any model can take a charmable weapon, which is fucking cool. It's not a charmable weapon.
Cool.
Power weapons, power fists. Any model can take 2 lightning claws. And again, we just talked about the Just Aaron guy, right? This guy's only 1 attack behind him, so he's getting 6 attacks on the charge.
Yeah, brilliant. And then would that be 7 in the Black Reaving or just
6 in the Black Reaving? So 2 base, 2 weapons, 2 on the charge. So, but even then, like you're not sending these into other Terminators. You're sending these into 20 like mass tactical marines.
Yeah.
That's you're bullying them. Like I said, this is a unit that goes and bullies lesser stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Just Air will go and bully lesser Terminators.
Yeah.
These guys will go and bully lesser power armored guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my personal opinion about these guys is that they can add up really quickly. So I think you need to be careful about what weapons you give them, how many weapons you give. You know, you don't want every model with a power fist, but 5 power fists in a squad of 20 will be amazing, right? Like that would just be so good with a smattering of lightning claws. I mean, the basic weapon of a chain axe is nothing to be sniffed at at all. So a really great unit, but just be careful about kind of the points you spend on them. But my advice would be go 15 to 20, go for a Spartan, or 12 in a Land Raider Proteus, and just wreck face. But bully those units, right? This is not gonna. They are not gonna survive well against other against Terminators. So think about the units you send them against.
Yeah, I think we had a similar conversation, if memory serves, about rampages in the World Eaters.
Exactly.
And I think it's the same stuff here, but these guys are cool, and we can't get to talk about this. We'll talk about really how good they are. And we've got the aggressors basically the same, except they've got jump packs.
Yeah. So I'm actually working on a big squad of 20 of these aggressors at the moment. They're behind my laptop as we speak. I think they're super expensive, these guys, like 30 points per extra dude is ludicrous. You're playing 8 points for the jump pack. But another thing I think is worth touching on with Reavers is the combination of, and again, this is probably if you enjoy the getting a little bit lucky every now and again, but the combination of precision shot and a melter gun, so you can try and double out characters. That's a tasty little combo.
Yes, it certainly is, Giles.
Absolutely. I think Reavers, like we said, you're not going for Terminators, but another unit in the army, just staring, they'll go through that Terminator squad, no problem. So I think a unit of Reavers and a unit of just staring complement each other really nicely. The Reavers will go through hordes of mooks, no problem at all. The weapon skill 5 and the strength 5 shred via the chain axe. I've had great success with mass chain axes and 1 power fist per 4 or 5 guys. And like Rob said, I'd heavily advocate 15 or more. So you can go over the enemy's big combat unit, send a Baden and some just staring into them, and these guys will hoover up any power armored units around them. So they work really nicely together.
I could really see just like a Reaver Aggressor squad, a 5-man Reaver Aggressor squad with 1 melter gun, a melter bomb, just going around like with his little melter gun, hopping this everywhere, you know, just blowing, trying to blow shit up. I think that's really cool. Very rare can you put plasma guns on jump pack units. Maybe destroyers probably are the only unit that can do something similar to that. So some sort of interesting combo, I think there. But good assessment by Giles. Very expensive, so be careful about adding too many weapon options on that unit. I think.
Yeah, like you say as well, the smaller squad. If you're going to black reaving, you could have a big squad and a little squad. The little squad being aggressors, perhaps that fills your 2 compulsory choices, and you've got an extra unit to try and proc that rage with as well, and they can go in first and potentially eat up any Overwatch.
That's a good idea.
So I mean, it's a lot of points for what that squad's doing, but it's pretty tasty. It's certainly an option.
You get maximum style points for doing it.
Yeah.
It's obviously the most important thing. We're not fishing for victory points. It's talking about style points.
Exactly.
Cool. So that leads us nicely to kind of our general overview. So as you can see, we've got some proper Sons of Horus heads between the 3 of us here. I think for me, that as I said right at the start, I felt that some synergies with Rights of War were lost, and I feel with the Sons of Horus they are forcing you down a direction, right? And exactly as Giles said, you'd be a fool to leave home without you just staring. And I think for me, that's kind of like the double-edged sword of Sons of Horus, really, which is that there is a very obvious way to play Sons of Horus, and that it the game and the list writing punishes you in the most brutal way if you try to do anything outside the bounds of not taking Abaddon or Justaerin or Horus. And I think that for me is a bit of a shame, because I think there were some kind of inventive things you could do in the last iteration. However, when you synergize and overlay lots of these units combined with the rights of war with the special characters, it combines to make some really cool combinations that are probably quite tough to deal with. But you have to play those synergies, otherwise it's a lesser legion, I think.
I agree. I mean, like I said, what attracted me to Sons of Horus is kind of like my sort of, I guess, my kind of army for events next year, really, is that I wanted something deliberately elite. And I think that I don't think there's really a better army that's elite and also plays in a way to how I've been playing for the last 2 years, really, which is kind of like massed infantry and just sort of weight of fire and shooting. I wanted something that was deliberately a bit more nuanced and a bit more elite and that was better in combat. And I think I'm really excited to get these guys on the table. I've got all the base codes done, pretty much everything now. I just just bring on March, which is the first event I've got sort of penciled in to get done for. So yeah,
awesome.
Can't wait.
Giles, last thoughts from you about Sons of Horus?
I'll just echo what we've said. Really, is you're looking to layer those buffs. I think the units are all quite expensive. Like Abaddon, not cheap. Justaerin, not cheap. Reavers, not cheap. I think the Black Reaving has the slight edge over the Long March. I think as well, if you're playing back Black Reaving and Deep Striking, you probably want an element that's pinning other units to try and add that support. I think as well, Deep Striking is a really great way to play Sons of Horus, both through fitting the narrative and the way 2.0 works. I think is probably the best option. I think Charybdises are probably like bring on the plastic ones before I invest heavily. But I think that's a great way to not only score as many style points as possible, but also a fantastic way to get a big blob of Reavers into your opponent's face as quickly as possible. So I think they play slightly differently to a lot of 2.0 legions, but the rules writers certainly, I think, had an idea of how they wanted to see them played. Like a lot of other legions, like Blood Angels, forces you down a fairly similar route to the Sons of Horus. I think you have to play on those a little bit, but it's a really fun way to play. I personally really enjoy that aggressive element. It's not for everyone, but yeah, I love them. They look great. The lore's hot. They're the ultimate bad guys. It's all Horus's fault, even if he doesn't have the vengeful spirit very often. Can't get enough personally.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that assessment. So we're going to kind of finish off now. So the most important part of the show, which is we're going to do our Roll of Honor. So these are our top level kind of Patreon praetors, and as you can see, every time we do a show, the list just grows and grows and grows. We've said it before, we had a target of 20 patrons by Christmas. It's a week before Christmas as we're filming this now, and we're on to 45 patrons, which is absolutely mad. We never thought that we would get to that level. So well done to you guys. Thank you ever so much. We hope you enjoy everything that we create. So thank you. So
it's worth bearing in mind as well that we are really so thankful to everyone. Like, obviously these guys are our praetors, but if it's a case you just want to kind of listen to us ramble on the tactics in a bit more detail, like, you can access all of that from just like £3 every month, and that does make a massive difference. Like,
absolutely, absolute bargain. Right, so we've got Thomas Silverstone, we've got John McArdle, Nicola Prisk, we've got Tom Hayward, Richard Willis, we've got Igor Powolowski, Dale Menmuir, Randy Overland, Tom Spear, Gawcrow, Shankly, Ben, Mike Dorset Wolf, Cody Silverstone, Pete Day, Ashley Bowley, Peter King, Alex Robertson, Walter Cook the Fourth, Ben Robinson, Neil Atherton, Patrick Greenstreet, Bradley Schlutz, Simon Whitehouse, Cathonic Waterbeast, Hammer and Nails 40k, and Kerry Love as well. So thank you to you guys, but thank you to all our patrons who support us for creating these
names in there as well.
Yeah, some heroes there, some absolute heroes.
Perpetual Walter Cook,
great surnames.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then finally, Let's have a look at our last one before we head off. So first of all, let's say thank you to Giles. So Giles, thank you ever so much for joining this. Your assessment of Sons of Horus has been really insightful to both me and John, but also to those viewing at home. So we hope to have you back at some point on the show if you'd love to come back. But if you would like to hear Giles on a weekly basis, then you can check out the Merchant Prince podcast on Spotify.
Weekly is a strong phrase, but whenever Tom can sort his life out.
Yeah, exactly. There's been a brief December hiatus. It's a busy time, but I'm sure they will be back in the new year in full.
Let's throw Tom under the bus. It's my entirely 1/3 of the podcast's fault, but we may.
So thank you so much to Giles. As I say, really insightful thoughts on the Sons of Horus. Hi guys, so unexpectedly we received some Mechanicum scrap code at the end of the video, so I just thought I'd make a kind of a sign off for you guys. Thanks ever so much for watching the video for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Just a few mentions, which is if you want to send us a list to review in our next episode, we've already received one already, which is James's Iron Hands list. Then just email us at heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this video and you like this video, then please let us know by subscribing, liking it, and giving us some comments below if there was something that we missed when we were looking at the Sons of Horus today. We'd love to get your thoughts and opinions about it, and let us know what you want to have a look at in the next video as well. And don't forget, we also offer a range of different videos through Patreon as well. Now, those videos are all to do with Tactica. In the last two videos, we looked at artillery. Each video was around an hour to an hour and a half long, so you definitely get your money's worth if you just pay £3 a month. So you can join us over there for even more heresy content. Take it easy, guys, and see you soon.